Hello, everybody. Blank, thank you so much for being here tonight. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Gab Key 4, thank you so much for the follow. Really appreciate it. Right at the beginning. Wow. It is lovely to see you all. Today we're going to be continuing our levels of play study for Platinum. We got reasonably far last time. Got through 2 of the 5 roles after, like, the whole, identification of, prominent traits. So I'm really hoping to finish tonight, but you never know. Like, we might run into a bunch of crazy problems, or we might, like, just abruptly understand some more gates and boons, and we have to go back and redo some of our lists to make sure they're still good. That sort of thing. But either way, I think we have a pretty solid understanding now. Yeah. So it's going all right. TVH, I prefer diamond in front. Oh, good. My eternal tormentor is back. How are you doing, Steven? Okay, you guys want a quick refresher on what we've been working on? Oh, my face is gone. Cool. Hi. Hello. Hello. Let's get a quick refresher. So, how does Platinum work? How does Platinum level play work, right? It's a level where we understand basic concepts, but, like, the mental stack limits us. Thinking quickly and creatively at the same time is hard, so the warp factor is, like, the most important thing, because you just want to make Platinum players deeply uncomfortable, right? We expect autopilot and macro inaccuracies. We expect wave management issues to be, like, the dominant thing that you're able to punish. We expect that matchups do matter unless they're interaction-based matchups, right? So if all of your matchups are interaction-based, you are slightly improved. You can be picked in more circumstances because you can reliably assume, like, I can try to outplay, right? Compositional matchups are not, like, super impactful yet because we don't want to force, like, Platinum players struggle to really, like, change the way they approach the game fundamentally, right? Because we have, like, one set of fundamentals. We've talked about synchronization is the worst skill. Wave management is hard. We struggle to sync up with teammates. Junglers know what's going on in the jungle, but laners do not. So junglers will often handshake and fail to take aggressive leads against each other, but we'll still find, like, quite a lot of value in just, like, attacking lanes at kind of unexpected intervals, you know? Clear speed doesn't really matter. Clear health only matters if it exposes lanes to stuff. Champion-specific vulnerabilities aren't really capitalized on. Why don't these matter? Because the plays that they would enable are not, like, there yet, right? So if you get invaded in Platinum, it's very obvious why it happened. It's none of these surprise, like, champion dynamic 1v1 type invades, right? So this is the part that we're most curious about today. We want to be sure that we have all of the right boons and gates established. We want to make sure that there's not more that we're missing before we're finished with today. So what limits you in Platinum? What's a gate specifically in Platinum? Being fundamentally reactive limits your power, because we, like, Platinum players, like to be proactive. They like to be the ones in the driver's seat, because otherwise they're not, like, just trying to predict what's happening, right? Being an aggro champion that relies on specific synchronous macro movements is bad. That devalues Caitlyn, right? Having to play for plates like that and rotate people all around the map, like, in tandem, you're not going to get the cleanest possible rotation. You're not going to get the cleanest lane swaps. You're not going to get clean coverage when you're making a top play necessarily. Like, the map doesn't move in sync yet. Complex aggro is weak, simple aggro strong. Champions who rely on... Yeah, we just talked about that. If you must plan for your power 2 to 3 minutes in the future, you encounter problems with mental stacks. But, like, but that's all the gates we have, and that feels a little off so far, right? Platinum-specific boons, though. Warp factor, big one. Being fundamentally proactive and aggressive, that augments your power. Offensive utility is very good if your utility is, like, controlling the battlefield and generating advantages that way. It's very effective, right? I'm gonna move Twitch chat. In the bot lane, poor wave clear from the AD carry is not punished as severely, so that's a bit of a boon. It compensates for a weakness. We talked about the interaction thing. If you have, like, big skill shots, we struggle to dodge in this level, right? Karibo, it's good to see you. Now, just because it is a fresh day and we all have fresh brains, can anybody off the top of their head think of a boon or a gate that would apply in Platinum level play that maybe we're kind of overlooking right now? Like, maybe we haven't thought about it just yet. Oh, that's not supposed to be. It's only a matter of time, I suppose. This was the support list we ended up generating. Hard to see, can't say. Ah, understandable. This is the support list. You can tell these are not tier lists, right? These talk about how, if you know a champion's theoretical power level, how much they would be improved. The ideal champion hits like all of the good criteria. Unlocked champions become far easier to pick. Empowered champions are just like noticeably stronger. Do we count Platinum Mental? Maybe we should, but remember that we're talking mainly about a coordinated environment. You can hit Mental. You can overwhelm Platinum players. Right. Firm believer in everything having dark mode. Very, very fair. Something about OneNote dark mode made me uncomfortable, and I can't explain it. It's like a weird thing like that. Did I write this somewhere? Excuse me for a moment. I'm just gonna go scour my desktop. Like, again, I cannot understand it. No. Okay, here we are. Here's the list that we came up with. Unlocked, significantly stronger with easier pick conditions. Empowered, significantly stronger. Enhanced, slightly improved, right? Devalued, slightly weaker. Impaired is when you're noticeably gated or weakened. Gated is when you actually generate more difficult pick conditions. Doomed, you just like, ugh. You just hit like everything uncomfortable here. Which is actually why I think we're missing gates for Platinum players. Because so far nothing just, we haven't identified a champion who just becomes doomed, right? We didn't find one in bot. We technically found Misfortune support in here, but I think that was a joke because, like, I don't think she's noticeably worse than she already is. Not to say she's good, but it's like, yeah. Like, I guess a champion who is very fundamentally like a bait and punish sort of thing would end up down here. I guess that's kind of true, no? No niche Alawi support match. Well, this list is a lot more trimmed down than my usual support list, right? Oh my god, guys, I've been getting in... This is unrelated. I've been getting in, like, fights on TikTok lately. I've made like 2 separate videos of me like walking outside, talking to my camera, like responding to comments on my Mandate versus Ludens video. And it's funny, it's like a third of TikTok commenters have like 4 IQ. A third of TikTok commenters want to make the people who have 4 IQ feel like they have 2 IQ. And a third of them are like the fucking funniest people you've ever seen. So... But no, I'm encountering some fun things on TikTok. Okay. Let's continue asking ourselves these questions while generating the next list, shall we? So we need like 5 more tiers. Ideal, unlocked, empowered, enhanced, can't type, no change, slightly devalued. So today we're going to be starting on jungle. And there's one thing that's going to have to go right into the top, right? Actually, several things that are going to have to go right in the top. So first, let's just gather our champions, though. Let's just start by gathering our champions. Jungle, 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 jungle champs. Okay. What is a jungle champion? Technically you, but I don't have to be happy about it. Apparently, eventually, possibly you. That's what I've been hearing. I'm very excited about that if that ever comes to fruition. We'll put him here. We'll put you here. Okay, I can't be weird. We're doing normal champions. I can't be weird. Yeah, I heard, apparently one of the designers on Aurelian Soul said they wouldn't be surprised, or they don't think it's going to be a thing on release, but they would look into making it a thing because it's kind of close. There was just something awkward about it. What the hell? What am I doing? What am I doing about to move Ilawi up there? Like, Yuximus has been a thing before. We will talk about him. Karthus. Kane. That's an interesting one. I'm actually really excited to talk about that one. Wiwia. Should we put Malphite in here? Alright, I see a yes. For fun. Let's do it. Malphite. Where was I? I swear Olaf is like barely a jungler these days. We can talk about Shen, Shyvana. God, Udyr is strong. Volibear, Warwick, Wukong, Xinjiao. I'm not putting Yorick up there for this time. Not this time. Okay. Nasus jungle is the thing. If he's allowed, just ignore the rest of the game. He stacks like a fucking monster. Yeah, but he stacks so slowly. I've seen a loon jungle. You missed Yuvi. Yeah, okay. Alright, guys. Alright. I have Nasus jungle rated on my regular jungle list, but I think it's like way too fringe to talk about for right here. Like, don't forget, I'm gonna have to turn this into a YouTube video, and there's certain types of comments that I don't want to get. So, no, Bard jungle is not going to be a thing. Okay, let's get started. There are two junglers right away that I want to put at the top. You and you. And I think we can understand why, right? These champions fundamentally change the game. It is so deeply uncomfortable to play against these in Platinum. I'd even go so far as to say this, well, like, a little bit. Warp factors, warp factors, warp factors. You're improved. Well, see, the thing about Warwick Jungle is he doesn't fundamentally change how the game works. He's just a shitty duelist. Like, so in IBS, Warwick is very, very, very scary because the fights break out, like, completely randomly. But I think by the time you're getting to Platinum and, like, the very basics of the jungle are established, Warwick already starts to fall off. Gain nicotine addict. We're looking for aggros, too. Yeah, you're probably like... I mean, is there really any change in Graves? Let's see, what boons would he hit? He doesn't, like, fundamentally change the game. He is proactive and aggressive. That would slightly empower him. Yeah, so there's not really... By our list, there's not a lot that would make Graves, like, noticeably better in Platinum than he is at other levels of play. This fucks up the game. Wait, is it easier picking conditions for Zac, or does he just get... Actually, Warwick is worse because the junglers in Platinum don't like to invade 1v1. Like, without stuff happening around the map, right? Yeah, Graves is good, but this isn't a list of who is good. This is a list of, you know, like, it's not a tier list, but it's such a weird type of list to have, you know? This is a list of who is improved or devalued in Platinum. Worse champions can be above better champions. That's what's happening here. Just because these champions are better in Platinum. So where do we go from here? It's like, if you're fundamentally proactive and, like, aggressive and stuff, you're slightly improved, right? So, like, slightly improved Lee Sin. Like, slightly improved Trundle. Morgana gets in Doomed tier solely because, like, most of what she does is very, very reactive, right? That's not a comfortable way to play down here. I think Karthus gets very slightly devalued. Is this the elo where Amumu starts making a better support than jungle? Oh, absolutely, but I don't think Amumu fully falls off. You do have to start drafting respectfully, though. Like, Amumu definitely hasn't fully fallen off in Platinum. Like Platinum is not particularly strong. Platinum just knows... Platinum can just generally figure out what's going on, like, baseline. What else? Is there anything else that, like, grossly dirties up the game? Like, what? You know what? Hacker... no change. No change. Hackerum's a weird one. We're also, like... Remember, the synchronization issues caused trouble for, like, team-dependent picks. So, like... Taric gets slightly devalued here. No, I mean, if the Taric player does... No, because the Taric team has to, like, know what to do with his stun. Viego can get, like, a little bit of aggro. Okay, Shaco should honestly go up here. Warpony just does his thing. Yeah, and it's kind of a trade-off of, like, me saying, well, Hecarim actually kind of needs a team to play around these days, and also, well, Hecarim just ganks and, like, makes stuff happen where they shouldn't happen. Like, it's a weird in-between. So I ended up putting Hecarim in no change. Gwen is, like, severely devalued at this level of play. Actually, she's just harder to pick, like... She actually loses pick conditions. For sure. It's literally just like, is this champion aggressive? Yes, they get slightly better. If this is this champion reactive? Yes, they get slightly worse. Like, that's actually what it's coming down to. I think there's probably no change in Maokai. Oh, wait, big skill shot. Remember, big skill shots are good. Big skill shot. Why do I even have Brand in my list? What am I doing? Okay, Talon doesn't get punished as hard for his bad clear health. Kiana's like a no change. I think Poppy is slightly devalued. Slightly, right? Because she loses a lot of the defensive capabilities that make her, like, really effective if we're struggling to play reactively, and if we're, like... Because, like, I'm just thinking, like, the average plat team ends up, like, really, really, really needing a driver. Or they get uncomfortable. And often that ends up being Poppy, if Poppy's on your team. It's hard to judge Poppy. Well, it's like, yeah, is she being improved by, like, the fact that her clear speed doesn't matter as much? Or... Oh, I don't know for sure. It's hard. It's weird. Hello, Jackie. How are you doing? It's good to see you. Okay, this is going to be a controversial one, but I think Ivern is, like, very slightly improved. Because he does warp the game. Actually, no. I think he's actually just empowered. Ivern becomes a better champion at this level of play because he just distorts all the timings, right? He's ganking at different intervals. If you're trying to track him, it's just... uncomfortable. It's different. And ultimately, I don't think his, like, resource gate matters too much. It is a unorthodox placement, but, like, I'm thinking about the aggressive Ivern stuff that I'm allowed to get away with that I feel like maybe I shouldn't. That sort of thing. Prisma, good to see you. Welcome. We're looking at aggro, right? I don't know, is Nidalee slightly improved? Does anybody here rely on, like, synchronization? I love Ivern. I just... He is very, very, very different. I'm just fortunate in that I've just been doing it for a while, so... Warp factors. Does Pantheon get noticeably better? Does Kindred get any better? I feel like Kindred's warp factor is like one of those that people kind of know how to play around, though, is the thing. Like people kind of get Kindred. People understand Kindred. Kindred's not like a niche weirdo with like unusual counterplay. Okay, well, like, let's actually just go ahead and put Bel'Veth up here. Yeah, Kindred tells the enemy team, like, probably what that is different is going to be happening. You don't have to track that. The game tracks it for you, and then you can make decisions with that publicly available information. So Kindred probably doesn't get, like, dramatically better. And I would actually go so far as to say no change. I mean, truthfully, my current perception of Kindred makes it kind of hard to even imagine anything up here, like, but... Okay, Mordekaiser's a case where the clear speed actually does matter because it does create opportunities. It's, like, so lightning fast that it surprises people and catches them off guard. I don't see anything unusual about Echo. Again, just like... Is anybody else here fundamentally reactive? I guess we can probably put Shyvana down here. I wonder if Udyr's a no change. If Mundo's clear wasn't unhealthy, his speed would be a problem. Karibo, do you have any insights as to what the fuck happened to Mundo's win rate? Because, like, the only thing I can think of is that I was wrong with my predictions of how that durability nerf would affect him. Because, like, the AD that he lost did not look substantial given what he had before. And yet, his solo queue win rate plummeted. You're kind of like... you're kind of like the honorary Mundo specialist for us. He's just too vulnerable. Okay, that is a solo queue problem. Yeah, that's a bad solo queue problem. So in that case, he's actually devalued. Especially now that his identity is a lot more scaling oriented. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, Rengar dirties up the game. Is Vi, like, actually up here? Is Vi actually up here just because she, like, is so point and click? I'm gonna put her up here for now, like, where Vi becomes, like, noticeably better in Platinum. Yeah, no, that's true! Because I remember there was a period where I was just convinced that Vi was one of the best champions in the game, and she just outright wasn't. And if I was getting all my experience and my data from Platinum games, then it would then stand to reason that she is just a better champion in Platinum. That's Q from... Ugh, gross. That sucks. Alright. Makes sense, though. I think Silas just kind of goes stupid. His damage is insane. He just... I mean, what is it? Like... Fundamentally proactive, aggressive champion augments power. Is there anything about, like, snowball potential in this? Should there be a boon with snowball potential? Like, if you just abruptly start killing everybody. Like, if there is a point where you hit critical mass, that's strategically kind of hard to deal with, no? No, Silas is better, because his weakest point... Silas is much better because his weakest point is his early clear, which isn't being punished, right? Okay, so who else is weak on their early clears? Rammus is weak on his early clears. Kane is weak on his early clears. Actually, I might just put them both up here. Angry Homeless Man can become a problem. Yeah, but he just becomes a problem no matter what level of play you're at, I think. So... Oh, Olaf. Wait a minute. Not Udyr. Olaf. Snowball. Nunu's way up here. Yep. Snowball. Nunu and William. So, I guess that actually... No, because Lilia just earns pick potential for fun. What would be, like... Okay, what is, like, noticeably worse? What... Are we missing... I keep feeling like we're putting too many champions up in Platinum. Like, they're better in Platinum. But does that mean... Like, is that real? Is that actually the right findings? Or are we missing gates? Because I'm putting Lilia, like... I don't want to put Lilia down here, even though she's kind of reactive and... slow. Because she just generates these weird picks that you... She's got, like, this artillery pick tool that is weird to play against. Maybe Rammus goes here, then? I mean, I know his clear speed is slow and he takes a while to come online. I'm still operating under the assumption that that doesn't matter too much in Platinum, and I'm thinking about, like, our own Rammus games. Like, we did pick Rammus in the VRD. What ended up happening is Rammus just sacrificed, like, every camp, just spam ganked bot lane, and then eventually I, on Senna, followed him around to speed up his clear and get souls. Most jungle champs are better. Well, but the problem is this actually started occurring in support and AD carry, too. Like... This happened in our previous studies. This happened in the other lists. Like, look how many champions get better or are in no change. Like, no change is fine. There's so many in better and so few down here. Same with this list, right? Very few moved around. So that either means that actually is how Platinum works, and there just are more viable champions, which probably is the case now that I say it aloud, or we're missing gates. Is there anything, like, overly coordination dependent, which, like, demanding specific combo potential from your allies? Or sorry. Demanding specific micro or macro attention from your allies complicates the game. Yeah, we did subconsciously know that. Is there anything here that has to be played around differently? Yes, there is. But don't you have a warp factor? Unironically, Nidalee, maybe? Like, slightly down? I'm just trying to name champions that, like, you know, something like the Senna 80 carry down here, where it's like, yeah, the support has to play, like, an entirely different game. I'm trying to think of the last time you've seen them in the jungle. It has been a while for some of them in solo queue, yeah? I don't think there's any real difference in Blitzcrank's power. He's still, like, not very good these days. Silas definitely needs teamwork, but not specific teamwork, I don't think. Silas doesn't look at your team and say, hey, play around me fundamentally differently, which actually Fiddlesticks does. And he only gets to stay high because what he does fucks up the game for the enemy team, too. Silas needs team coordination in the sense that, like, you should know how to team fight together, which can be easily understood at this level. Like, they're not clean team fights necessarily, but, like, they're functional team fights, and everybody generally knows, like, the basics of what their role is. Just not the specifics. Specificity is the make or break in Platinum. I unironically think a Mumu might be slightly improved. Like, slightly. Slightly. Nidalee should, in theory, dirty up the game. But something about her is causing me hesitation. Darius only needs a synergy point met, and it doesn't have to be an enchanter mid. Xinjiao doesn't necessarily need his synergies at this level, I think. Too many people whiffing spear. Do we have to talk about mechanical gates? I thought mechanics, like, peaked here, no? Like by the time you're if you're playing a mechanical champion in Platinum and you know the champion, like, you reasonably have, like, most of your mechanics down. And the only thing you improve on from there is, like, consistency and decision making. Like, does Nico dirty up the game for the enemy team? Current state Nico, no, not really. I don't think her passive, like, reliably confuses anybody in current state. In post rework Nico, probably absolutely yes. We'll have to see how that comes out. So. So what would hold me back from, like, putting Nidalee high is, like, how much does her team have to play around her? Remember, laners don't know what's going on in the jungle very well at this level. But she is such a pain. She's like... I'll leave her here for the short term, and we'll see. We'll see. Big skill shot. Okay, big skill shot champions. No, this is fundamentally defensive and weird. I'll say no change. So we have Olaf, Brand, Jax, Kha'Zix, Malphite, Pantheon, Rumble. Rumble's actually been making a resurgence lately that I need to look into. Sejuani, Set, Shen, Skarner, Talia, Twitch, Urgot, Zed. Now, I think Skarner is, like, a generally pretty excellent champion. But does he gain or lose value in this context? It is offensive utility. It is a pain in the ass to play against in that sense. Offensive utility is good. He's probably going to prey off some mistakes. At worst, he's forcing attacks. So I guess we just have to... Okay, does Skarner have a significant warp factor? I don't think so. He just has a suppression, and people know how to... Like, people intellectually know what you would have to do against suppression. Fundamentally proactive, being aggressive. He does have offensive utility. If all of your matchups are interaction-based, you are easier to pick. That doesn't really matter in the jungle. Does he have a big skill shot? No. Okay, I think that actually leaves us here. I think that leaves us here. What am I even doing with most of these champions? Like some of these should not be talked about just yet. Sejuani slightly enhanced. That level of aggression is here. Pantheon is actually probably a nightmare to deal with if he's capable of clearing. Like, whenever he's a good jungler, he's probably a huge problem in Platinum. I'm just thinking of, like, the warp factor of Pantheon Ultimate without knowing necessarily where he is to start. Without the reliable counterplay of a tactical... What is my hair doing? Ew! What is it? That's so flat. Okay. Have I seen Panth jungle lately? Not since they gave it its round of buffs in, like, 12-18. No. And 13-1 statistics are not very reliable because of the rank reset and all that. And, like, by numbers in solo queue, it's not very excellent. And it had kind of its time in the spotlight. Like, it never got nerfed. And I was putting it at, like, bottom of... Oh, that's Legends of Runeterra. I was putting it at, like, bottom middling tier when it got its 12-18 changes. That's kind of what I was... Oh, 12... Wait, which one is it? No, it was 12-14. What? That long ago? Really? Huh. Okay, well... I have not seen Pantheon jungle lately. I was never super high on it. But I do think when it's good, it should be a menace in Platinum. No, is Kha'Zix... Okay, like, Kha'Zix and Rengar are, like... why would Rengar be... Okay, Rengar is slightly better because he's, like... Rengar is slightly better because... he does warp the game and change where you're allowed to be. Like, it's kind of like a similar Evelynn warp factor, but he's not better to the point of Evelynn, because what makes him really good is, like, the raw jungle gap, raw jungle 1v1 interactions, and we've established that that's typically not what Platinum junglers are great at, right? So he probably doesn't get much better. Kha'Zix probably similar, except to even a lesser degree, because he doesn't warp the game. And actually Zed too. Like... I actually think it's a correct conclusion to just say Platinum picks are more open than people think. You don't have to follow meta, you just have to be good at the champions you play, because most champions are at least a little bit better. I think that's actually not an incorrect conclusion. I just can't play Gwen, so... I mean, to my knowledge, set jungle can't clear very well. I never actually followed up in the preseason to see if it was fixed in any way. No change in you. Olaf. How do we feel about Olaf? Not necessarily just in Platinum, but as a whole, jungle. He's pretty slow and unhealthy these days in the early game, right? Actually, yeah, So I'm putting him here because if what I just said is true, then the way to get him out of that is to let him scale and give him enchanter pairings and those types of compositions are very control oriented, and they're like weird aggro controls, non-team fights, and the second you start introducing like control archetypes, the worse it gets. So actually, unfortunately, we probably will have to put Alawi at slightly devalued here once we get to top lane, which would feel really bad. Talia. You know what, let's just commit. Let's just commit to this, okay? Let's just put Shaco at the top. Let's just do it. Okay, so like in my opinion, it's like, hold on, let's just... So it's like Ilawi's like level of effectiveness is like this kind of, where it's like this is platinum, it's at its worst. This is IBS. And this is like masters. And why is she good up here? Because the only time she's drafted at this point is when the enemy has literally no choice but to walk into her. So here she's picked like fucking whenever and wins the game. Here, she's too reactive for those compositions to work. Here, people should know how to play control compositions and draft Alawi appropriately, and then when you pick the right control composition with the right Alawi pick, then she's good again. That's what I think Alawi kind of looks like throughout levels of play. Yeah, it's disgusting. That champion is not balanced if you draft her with a brain. So... I didn't like that. That was bad. Oh. Caught in my throat immediately. I could tell right away. Like the first swallow, it was like, oh, this is gonna suck. Like, oh. Oh. Okay. It's just dirty mobs. True. Why would a team have 4 melee? Because you've committed to a dive composition, right? There are just completely valid, legitimate compositions that like have really, really, really short range, and then the natural counter to those types of compositions would be something like Alawi or Urgot or Taric or Nico or like these styles of reactive champions. Urgot's such a weirdo. Okay, of our unknowns, do we see anybody who, like... I mean, I really can't even... Okay, Twitch jungle is, like, slightly better, I guess. I miss River Shen. I miss it, too. It's a funny pick. I'm sure it's, like, garbage right now, no? I'm actually gonna be really... Oh, yeah, what is his itemization if he's going to try to play River Shen? It has to be garbage, right? Yeah, there's no way. It's just... Oh, no good options. 0 items. You're like Titanic Rush, if anything, right? Like, and even that, yeah. Ugh. Gross. Okay, I think the one pick that makes the most sense to actually talk about from this point on is probably Talia. Isn't Rumble alright since they unnerfed his W shield cooldown? Yes, there's actually been a resurgence in Jungle Rumble that I have to investigate. Like, I'm not very knowledgeable on that one right now, but Rumble himself is alright. But the question isn't, is Rumble good? The question is Rumble better in Platinum? Because again, this is not a tier list. It looks like one, but... Yeah, he was really excellent in that one period, and I personally still think he's, like, way up there in power for specifically mid lane. So yeah, don't quote me on any Rumble jungle things. I just know it's having a resurgence and is looking good again. But does he have any... Actually, let's find out if he has any properties that would make him good in Platinum, right? Does he have a fundamental warp factor? Does he, like, dramatically change how the game plays out? No, I don't really think so. Is he fundamentally proactive and aggressive? Actually, kind of no. He's kind of not. He has combos that can be really overwhelming. He does have offensive utility, like, great offensive utility. He has big... Okay, so you know what? Rumble would be slightly better in Platinum. Rumble would be slightly better in Platinum. And that leaves Talia. Do we think her wall is enough of a fundamentally different thing to play around that people might get disoriented? Probably, yes. Slightly improved. Okay, and I don't really care to rate the bottom 5. Okay, controversial entries. Does anybody have anything they'd like to complain about right now? I'm just kind of scanning the list. Nocturne, Evelyn, Shaco absolutely belong up there. Rek'Sai, Nunu, Elise, Fiddlesticks absolutely get better and easier to pick. Zac, Yi, Ivern, Belveth, Vi, Silas, Kane Ross, Pantheon, yeah, 100% belong up there. These are the champions who all just become slightly better. Do any of you deserve to go up a tier to Empowered where you become noticeably better? No, I don't think so. Are these champions truly unchanged in Platinum? Hecarim had that weird thing we were talking about. Kindred's warp factor is not very substantial because everyone has the information. Echo, Udyr, Blitzcrank. I mean, Blitzcrank's just kind of bad, even though he does dirty up the game and make it weird. I guess Blitzcrank can go up a little bit. Okay, Nidalee was still controversial. Yeah, Malphite does have the button. The button is funny. I don't feel comfortable enough placing this, actually. I'm just gonna remove it. I don't feel comfortable enough placing it because I don't know enough about Malphite jungle. Nidalee was a weird one. Groggy, Skarner. Okay, so maybe Nidalee and Gragas could make a case for being moved around a little bit. Gragas is kind of fundamentally reactive, I guess. Like, in the jungle, he's absolutely capable of making plays to a degree. And just showing up and, like, body slamming you and getting weird with it. And guys, I'm ashamed of myself. I talked myself into being okay with Hextech, with Night Harvester Gragas support. I talked myself into being okay with that, and I'm upset because I think Locket Gragas is way better, but I've made my peace. You can complain about Shaco? Good. You're supposed to hate Shaco. The fact that people hate Shaco is why he's so good in Platinum. You could see Gragas higher, but you could see him in no change too. Okay, so it's ultimately up to me then, as to whether I think his big skill shots and, like, whether I think his, like, big area coverage is enough of a boon, or if his defensive nature is enough of a gate. I guess they are trying to cancel each other out, so no change. Are Nidalee players... What are Nidalee players doing? What are Nidalee players? Who is a Nidalee player? Like, they just enter your jungle. But, like, is Nidalee then the exception to the rule? Do Nidalee players in Platinum still just enter your jungle, despite the fact that, like, no other type of jungler does that? Like, say you're Nidalee one trick. Have you actually just learned to do that? You probably have, playing your champion. Oh, you're probably just a menace. Oh god, no, you're a menace. You are a problem if you're playing Nidalee in Platinum. Because, like, you're probably the only champion actually taking the weirdo warp factor invades. Oh, you're much better. Yeah. Tragically, yes. Unfortunately, there are Nidalee players. I'm satisfied with this list. I think our Platinum team's coordinated enough to counter or play around Kindred's invades. So yeah, the reason that Kindred doesn't get higher is because we've kind of decided through experience and through thinking about it, Kindred's warp factor is like the least offensive warp factor in all of Platinum. Basically because everybody kind of understands what Kindred does, and even though the laners as a whole in Platinum are reasonably clueless about what's happening in the jungler themselves is given the information they need to make decisions based on the minimap. It doesn't really add to their mental stack. They can just see the Kindred marks on the map and like generally understand how to make decisions around that. So I think they're not necessarily coordinated enough to deal with Kindred's invades, but Kindred doesn't become better solely because of being in Platinum. Granted, I still think Kindred is like a top 3 jungler in the game, but for the sake of levels of play stuff, Kindred stays here. So that's right now my opinion. And obviously I'm going to be flexible with this whole thing as time goes on, because we are just developing the concepts and we are just trying to figure things out, right? Like there's a high likelihood I've made mistakes in this, which is fine. Because the point is to just make a decision and then iterate on it. Honestly, Karibo, Elise is kind of good this season. Elise, who is allowed to clear all of her camps, makes solo queue Elises very happy. Okay, I think this is a reasonable understanding of Platinum. I think we can do that. I'm the top laner! P Jungle 13-1. Okay. What role do we want to do next? Let's move on right away. Let's do top lane. Speaking of top lane. I've already forgotten my tiers. I'm not used to this new type of list. Gasted? What am I... Okay, let's make it all pretty. Let's give it some pretty colors. Oh, I didn't do this one. Dated? I wrote dated this time! Okay, let's talk about top lane. Let's talk about top lane. And again, we'll be looking to see if we end up with any, I was about to put a Felios there, and I was about to put Annie there, just whatever. We're going to see if we're missing any Platinum-specific gates or boons as we're talking about what would make a top laner good in Platinum, right? Because there very well could be something missing here. See, don't be cringe, Quinn. We're not talking about Corki or Draven top. Like, we're not... we could probably actually mention Cassiopeia, though. That's not that outlandish. It's just a little unusual. Who's about to add Ivern? Top lane gang, let's go. We love top lane. I like Karma top lane, so so I am a bad person, but I hope you can forgive me. I was just like, my history brain almost put in Nautilus, and that would have been nice and nostalgic, but tragically no. No Nautilus top for us. I will put Rost up here. There was a period in, like, I think immediately after the durability update where, like, Rost top was probably really good. And I didn't capitalize on it. Actually, I could put Trist up here, yeah. Have I missed anyone so far who, like, should be on the list? The top laners know how to properly leave their lane in Platinum. I would argue that they're not super... Okay, so remember what's holding people back in Platinum, right? Platinum players have, like, the basic fundamentals, but poor synchronization. Top laners are not conditioned to roam. It's not, like, one of the fundamentals of their lane. And so I would assume, actually thinking about the top laners I've played with and against as well, they're not calling for early swaps or anything. They're probably not super comfortable with early swaps. Yeah, I'm gonna say, like, that's not, like, a defining trait of Platinum top lane, no. Trist top has been played, like, 2 people. Yeah, but it's pretty legitimate, right? And a lot of matchups prevent you. Yeah, it's actually why Shen is usually devalued, because if you actually use your ultimate, you just get punished with, like, 3 plates, right? Speaking of, though, since one of the dominant things in Platinum is a warp factor, Shen wins games. Shen just wins. So let's look for more of our ideals with a positive warp factor, right? What, like, fundamentally dirties the game? Is Yorick any better at this level? Okay, so I already know Gragas is a little stronger here because his bad matchups are interaction-based, which means he can get away with his bad matchups, which means he actually gets a lot more pick conditions. You can get away with playing him more, but then the downside is that top laners are above, like, more than any other player in the game, except for, like, 80 carries, are usually pretty uncomfortable with their predominant responsibility being to peel. So that's, like, the only reason why Gragas would be slightly devalued, but, like, Gragas actually does unlock a lot of pick conditions. Yeah, but who, like, fucks... Okay, so we talked about Alawi already and why she would actually be slightly devalued in Platinum. Actually, I'm going to put her straight up in Impaired. Like, I think we lose value from that style of champion. Mordekaiser should probably be slightly devalued, but he's compensating by just still randomly generating lane advantages. Fundamentally proactive champs, fundamentally reactive champs. Malphite's big go button is funny. People tend to know how to deal with Nasus here, and they're not picking the champions that he's, like, really good into on average, right? So this probably is also one of Nasus's troughs. Anyone else, like, fundamentally reactive? Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay, Akshan top. That's also true. Yep, Juggernauts start falling off. But Garen hasn't fully fallen off here. Darius hasn't fully fallen off here. We're not, like, at the top yet, right? Darius is still generally aggressive and gets slightly enhanced. I feel like top lane tanks don't necessarily, like, get better here. It's not super fun when the top laner is like the driving force, yeah? Okay, we're still looking for warp factors. Does anything else hit, like, Shen tier? Anything else? Anything else at all? Is anything, like, completely messing up the game? I mean, could we actually argue, like, this? I'm not committing to him being there yet. I just think he's probably pretty good there. Scion, but literally only in the hands of one player. Oh, but no, but the actual full inting Scion is definitely not there anymore. If this were like Scion that built full AD and still did full damage to turrets while dead, 100% he goes up there. 100%. Not even a question. I don't know about current Scion, though. Aggro champs. Kennen is kind of a weird meta call. So I think he probably doesn't get noticeably better. I mean, I know the game becomes a little bit of a game of watch the Kennen, but I don't know if I find that compelling. There are definitely some vibes-based placements here. Klepto was ripped away. He hasn't been very happy. Kennen? Yeah, no, Kennen is actually really good into, like, very specific champions that are meta-dominant right now. I remember noticing that. Like, who was it? It was, like, Fiora, right? Was it Fiora? I think it must have been. No, it was either Fiora or Jax. It was one of them, but not both. It was, like, these almost mobile... It was, like, these, like, semi-mobile skirmishers. The ones who can't just, like, directly jump right onto him. He was good into. I'm trying to remember what I read. I should have taken more notes. Probably Fiora. It was probably Fiora. Not Jax. Fucking... Have you been on the Zhonya's hype train, Karibo? Or is that just me? Like, I played a Jax game the other day. I got the fortune of playing Jax into Camille. I literally built Sunderer Zhonya's DD. God, those ratios are funny. So weird. Okay, GP. This is a weird one. This is a fundamentally defensive, reactive champion who also just warps the game around him. So it's like, what do we do about that? Gangplank changes everything about a team fight or any cross-map play. Like, so that would imply Singed a bit better in Platinum since the player won't be wasting the poison clouds on useless runs. Better than IBS? Maybe not? It's a good question that I don't have an answer to. We'll have figured it out by the end of this, but for right now, I'm kind of stuck. It's like 5 people on the planet who can play GP, maybe one's in flat. Okay, but like, the basics. You don't need like the giga combos like you. There are definitely people in Platinum who are mechanically comfortable on Gangplank. Okay, hear me out on this one, because I think we just stumbled across a gate. Hear me out on this one, okay? Hear me out. I've just realized that you can be mechanically comfortable in a champion, but since you're Platinum, you know, we talked about how those inevitable mistakes are going to happen. It just becomes that much harder to carry a game. Maybe Nidalee's too high on our last list. Uh-oh. My top laner on my current team thinks that Fiora is not quite as good as everyone says. And I asked him why. He's like, I have literally, in my life, never seen a Fiora in my solo queue games, like, carry a game. And I'm like, is he right? Like, she's not that mechanically hard, but, like, you do just have to execute on her very consistently. And Platinum players only execute semi-consistently. Does that actually devalue Fiora a bit? Like, no, that could just be wrong, right? That could just be wrong. I'm trying to figure that out right now. But at least that's like the premise of the argument. And if it ends up being true, we have a new gate, and then we have to revisit the rest of our... Like, mechanical complexity should not hold people back in Platinum. That's what I said. But maybe that's only to a degree. I don't think solo queue win rate statistics are gonna help us here, because that only shows how much you win, not how much you are responsible for winning, right? Karma's cringe and fucks up the game. I love her. Let's put her up here. While we think about this Fiora point. Whoops. Let's put these two in here. Gangplank has a small warp factor, we'll say. Top lane mains in the chat. Can you guys think of champions who literally all of their matchups are defined by just how well you can play them? Or, like, whose matchups are defined by interactions, not by whether you get outranged or not, not by whether you beat certain classes or lose to certain classes. Literally, exclusively interactions. Can anybody think of those? Okay, fucking goddamn it. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna scrap that theory about Fiora then. Because if all of Fiora's matchups are interaction-based, then that improves her. So, she's skill match up the champion. Is that different than being interaction? It's not like Fiora's not blind pickable already in theory play. Okay, what champion has, like, losing or unwinnable matchups that are defined by, like, specific counterplay windows? Like, for example, Gragas, who the matchups he loses are the ones where he can't simply body slam his assailant away, but that goes unpunished pretty often. Down here. Aggression, okay, slightly improved. Although it's like, do you really want this champion on your team? In competitive? Yeah, it is Platinum. We are bad. Riven, probably. No, I think Riven does have class-based matchups where she just fails to have an impact because she's playing into a particularly durable champion. I think that does end up happening with her. Like, I do kind of stick with a rule where I shouldn't, even if I have a Riven player, I probably shouldn't draft Riven into, like, pure tanks. Because she will just kind of stop killing things. Ornn is flexible enough to only be hard countered by Fiora. Are Ornn's matchups all interaction-based? Let's think about that. Well, Ornn's ultimate is definitely, like, the funny big skill shot that we like in Platinum, right? We'll put Ornn in Empowered. He's noticeably better. does have outplay potential on almost anyone. Perfect. That is an open, like, that opens up pick opportunities. Perfect. Darius. Where did we put Darius? Where did Darius go? Where did I put... Oh, Darius is up here. I already moved Darius up here. So, Xante is a weird one because we're still trying to figure him out, and the counterplay to him is definitely being developed, and he absolutely is not as dominant as he once was, because not only, I mean, I don't think his W nerfs were very substantial at all, regardless of what his solo Q win rate would say. I think we just got better at playing into him and picking counter matchups, right? Because, like, what beats Xante? Well, Fiora, Gwen, Singed, Nasus, Yorick, Garen, right? There's a lot of these weird, unorthodox champions that do just kind of beat Xante. But he's also very interaction-based in all of his matchups, so that at least makes Xante slightly better in Platinum, right? Even if we're starting to develop and learn the counterplay. That does make him slightly better. They're all interaction-based matchups. He doesn't... I mean, yeah, there is, like, 1 or 2 matchups that he just loses for being a tank. But, like, even so. Reactive champions, which actually, to an extent, is Xante, but... reactive champions. Who are some particularly reactive champions? You could argue Udyr, but... hyper control. I mean, okay, Lilia. No, I mean, Lilia. Mundo, again. From what's going on here makes me happy. Does not make your opponent happy, I can assure you. Heimerdinger. Okay, Heimerdinger actually does choke out a lot of things, but in the top lane in Platinum, because we don't like control comps, and he loses some of his proactive value because he's a top laner, I think he actually does get a little bit devalued. Reactive Poppy, slightly devalued. Oh, it's disgusting, I'm aware. It is no fun to play into, at all. Fundamentally pretty aggressive, and, like, she enables combos that are game warping, like Camille Galio. All of the niche picks and stuff are not particularly... We definitely have more impaired champions than other roles, which is kind of neat. Renekton probably becomes noticeably better for aggros and stuff. Would not be surprised. Pantheon absolutely becomes better. Warp Factor. A lot of interaction-based matchups, to my knowledge. Yeah, because even if he's in, like, a matchup that he can't one-shot, he can just poke and roam, no? Platinum team's able to play around split push. That would affect things a lot. Do we consider split push a warp factor? They are able to do so if and only if their own top laner has not been, like, completely crushed, is my experience. When there is a top laner who has become overwhelming, I have executed very inappropriate macro responses to it. I have seen other teams use very inappropriate macro responses to it. I have tried and failed to prevent inappropriate macro responses to it. Yes. So actually, we have a principle for this, right? Platinum players will make synchronization mistakes, some wave management mistakes, some macro mistakes, right? They will respond to things, but they will respond inappropriately. They will make roams, good roams, but not great roams, and they're giving stuff up for doing it, right? Like, they'll... So in that sense, actually, yeah, split pushing is a minor boon, then? Split pushing would be a minor boon. We actually probably should say that. But not a major one, like, not to the extent that it is in IBS, where people literally just don't have a concept of how to respond. Platinum players do have a concept of how to respond, they just pick the wrong options sometimes, and give up Barons for it. Like, God, the amount of times I've seen Barons given up from teams going bot lane. Okay, no, yeah, okay, yeah. 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 I can't even tell you how many times a Scion has wreaked havoc in the side lane now that I think about it. Sion's just annoying. he's just a pain in the ass. Okay, let's talk more. Gwen, slightly devalued, time to scale, reactive sort of pick, right? Very reactive sort of pick. Very control-oriented sort of pick. But only slightly devalued because in top lane she still just kind of becomes a top carry and people know how to play those. Set is slightly empowered. He's not at the point where, like, his stat check nature kind of falls off yet. Aggression. Aggression reactive. Aggression reaction. Sejuani's going in no change. She does hit, like, the big skill shot, but, like, nowadays she's not really a bully as much as she used to be. Her itemization is kind of poor from top lane. Like the best solution in my opinion is IBG, but it's weird. Does Gnar hit any gates or boons here? Because I don't think Gnar is weakened at all. There's nothing he hits here. Fundamentally proactive, aggressive champion augments power. Offensive utility is huge. Well, this is some pretty fucking good offensive utility, so that makes Gnar better. Even if just a little bit. I guess that does kind of hit Maokai too, doesn't it? Big skill shots. I would imagine Yone no change. Wukong no change. Does Nar's rage control count as a gate? No, because it changes how the game is played, but only for the Nar player. And those types of modifications should not affect Platinum, because the Nar player should understand Nar. If Nar's rage had to be played around by, like... If Nar's rage changed how the game worked for Nar's teammates, then he would be worse. If it changed how the game worked for his enemies, like... Yeah. Some matchups swing the lane if he goes Mega inappropriately. Huh. That would be a problem. That would be a problem. Well, I don't think his range... Let me put it this way. I don't think Nar's Rage is a Platinum-specific gate. So even though it probably would have to be a gate in his IOGs, like input-output gate spikes, which is my assessment of champion power, even though it probably would be a gate there, it wouldn't be like a Platinum-specific gate that limits power in Platinum. Yeah, Nar's Rage probably would be. Karibo, I'm writing that down. I'm writing that one down right now. Just gonna... Oh my god, this is from Top Week, like 2-3 years ago. Like, this is from Top Week. God damn. All right. Check everything above to see if it has aged poorly. Mega Gnar and Mini Gnar have different matchup spreads. One can become killable in lane, where the other would not be. Wow, that's old. I'm writing that down. That's very important. I have a bad habit of learning something cool and new and not writing it down. It's such a bad, nasty habit that's been, like, plaguing me. Because realistically, like, I get so much good information from experienced people who have different experiences than I do from Twitch chat, and then I just forget. It just goes out of my head because I didn't bother to write it down. I didn't bother to internalize it. Oh, top lane, top lane, top lane. Top lane. I mean, like, quite a lot of these champions probably end up with no change, no? Jace is definitely a bit annoying, but I actually don't know if the Jace players can execute on his lane yet. Like, Jace might just get a specific thing where it's like, yeah, you still can't play Jace, don't try. No, he changes how his jungler has to play quite a lot. Jace has very specific needs and, like, specific counter gank windows, and, like, he's very, very demanding, just like Caitlyn is. So Jace actually does get slightly devalued. Okay, Garen gets away with a few more matchups, I think. Warp. Aatrox is, like, falling back into his old identity as kind of like an aggro skirmisher rather than a team fighter. So I think that identity is still good in Platinum. Actually, let me write that one down too. Good lord, this is also from top week. Aatrox becomes an excellent team fighter when his healing is overtuned. Otherwise, he is more of an aggro skirmisher, spiking between 15 to 25 minutes. Okay, let's just keep that one written down there, right? Who gets improved? Strong, like, gross bully. I mean, you probably get a little... You're probably still a little bit better than you should be, right? Just from, I mean, what are boons? Warp factors, fundamentally proactive, aggressive champion, offensive utility, big skill shots, split pushing. Like, hard split pushing, hyper split pushing. Knife cat top. Oh wait, this champion grossly dirties up the lane. Yeah, this... If you don't know how to beat Knife cat top, you are going to lose to Knife cat top. Requires very specific counterplay. Yeah. So yes, he is, actually he probably straight up goes up here, right? Actually, he could even go up here, but... he really, really could go up here. He really could go up here now that I think about it. He actually, I think I'm gonna leave him there. I'm actually gonna leave him there. Just stay away from wave, except you're losing a lot of CS. But that's uncomfortable, right? Don't forget, that means you're playing the lane very differently. Platinum players don't like that. Just takes one mistake, too. Oh, Rengar actually gets up here, I think. I think he's actually Shen tier. Like, would that not be similar for Heimerdinger? I don't think Heimerdinger is as oppressive by surprise factor. I think it's pretty clear what he's doing, and it's pretty fucking annoying, and I think the compositions that Heimer ends up playing into become more control-oriented, which are always devalued in Platinum. It would be similar, but it's kind of just like, I mean, in that sense, maybe we could kind of move him up here a little bit. But again, like, this champion plays into Giga aggro comps. This champion loses access to some of his most proactive tools because he's a top laner. It would be similar, but I think it's different. I think it's different enough to matter. So what do I do with him? Because that is a good point. That's a great point, actually. I'm very glad you brought it up. My gut is telling me to keep him here. No, my gut is wrong. My gut is wrong. I'm gonna put him in no change, because I think his strengths and benefits kind of... Or his strengths and weaknesses in Platinum kind of, like, pull in opposite directions, and they kind of, like, balance out. I think that must be true. Okay, of our unknowns... Heimer top's disgusting, but you don't think it makes him innately better. True. I think it's just regular grossness, which needs specific counterplay, which is weakened by comps that Platinum players don't play, which neutralizes out. Yeah, okay. Are there any doomed champions in this area where, like, you have champions that are, like, fundamentally very, very reactive, who... Oh, wait, hang on. Where's Zillion top? Yeah. These, like, fun control strategies where I think they're actually good, but you're not going to be able to find a Platinum team who can, like, comfortably execute on those. Never. Like, I like Zillion as a counterpick to Darius. I just like making people upset. You don't understand Shyvana Top. You thought she needed to kill dragons. Basically, the TLDR of Shyvana Top is she just likes having the income, and this is the safest place to get it. And it does feel bad to not have direct control over the Drakes, but you kind of draft her when you have a reasonable expectation of your teammates getting the Drakes for you. So then you just become, like, significantly tankier and can kind of beat up on a melee for a while. It's just about getting the income. It used to be good. It was like even just a season ago, it was pretty reasonably good. They nerfed her tank builds. That's what they did. They nerfed her tank builds repeatedly, like, as they were kind of buffing up some AP stuff. So, yeah, I'd imagine it's not very strong anymore. Galio Top seems like it could work, but it also seems like it gets countered by everything. Galio Top, when he first got freshly reworked, was, like, the dominant way to play him, I remember. And then, yeah, as they shifted around his power, I think his matchups just fell off a cliff. That's my memory of it, at least. That was, like, Season 7. That was, like, 5 years ago. Oh my god, that was like, 6 years ago now. Okay, I'm gonna stop having an existential crisis so we can kind of, like, keep working on this list, right? Yes! That was a stupid patch! That was not a correct patch. They... Galio Cute breathes on you. You die. Just... Oh... Do you remember the patch where Pyke could accidentally execute his teammates and where Annie's stun did not work? It was like some Season 9 thing, like just the patch of the game broke and they had to disable ranked because like half of the champions were grossly bugged. Pyke can execute teammates. Oh, that one was dumb. We have so many more champions to get through, and, like... Oh, okay, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and just say there's probably no change in Jackson. There's probably no change in Irelia, and they're probably, like, just as good as usual. Like, I can't imagine them being held back by any of this stuff. And I can't imagine them, like, getting hit a lot by these. I mean, maybe Irelia is, like, actually, like, a little bit better from just, like, murdering you, but... Trundle would gain slight value if he were a stronger champion right now. Mundo probably worse. This is probably one of his troughs. Yeah, because Karibo, you just said how weak and vulnerable his early laning is. In fact, that means I would probably even put him down here. No, that's not fundamentally reactive. That's just weak for a while. So, yeah, that's just slightly devalued. Specific micro or macro attention from your allies complicates the game. That actually kind of implies there aren't any specifically gated top laners. Like, it's not like you lose pick conditions as a top laner because you don't have a duo on the map who has to kind of conform to you. It's only stuff like Jace who doesn't lose pick conditions, he's just devalued because it's harder to play around him. Any negative warp factors remaining. Stuff that fundamentally changes how the game must be played for their allies. Again, in top lane, probably not. I'm just checking. Yeah, I know. It's... the big thing that we'd be missing is, like, when does a champion's matchups stop mattering a bit? Like, because again, Gragas hits that. His matchups kind of stop mattering in Platinum to a degree. He gains new pick conditions because you can just kind of force him and he won't get punished as hard. Is there anybody else like that we're missing? Is there anybody who, like, you know, it's like they're not the type of champ, like, so Scion doesn't get to be up here because Scion is still, if you can dodge my Q, the matchup is so much harder. Like, he can't really outplay that as much. I guess it is interaction. No, it is very interaction-based now that I think about it. It is very interaction-based. You have to know that knowledge. It is specific Scion counterplay. You have to I mean, it's not hard counterplay to understand. But then you have to... That's an interaction-based matchup. Scion's matchups are better in Platinum. The key factor is interaction-based. Same with most of these champions, actually. Most of these champions lose off champion interactions, not on specific classes. I mean, like the tanks definitely still lose matchups from being tanks. They are not saved from that, right? So that implies some of the juggernauts would also get hit by that to a degree, but not to the same degree. Wow, probably a lot of champions gain value from... The only reason you wouldn't gain value from that is if you are literally too binary to... I mean, Kennen's matchups are built on... Yeah, so Kennen's matchups aren't like that. Kennen... I mean, they're still technically interaction-based matchups, but it's more along the lines of because you have gap closers and a way to get on Kennen, like, he loses. It's not like you have to exert a lot of brain power. Avoiding it, the domestic terrorist that is Vayne. Yes, excellent champion. You know, you'd be pleased to know that I finally dropped her a bit in my theoretical tier list because, like, every time that I've tried to draft Vayne in my theory drafts, I'm like, this jungle intervention situation is a problem, and I don't think Vayne can 1v2 in this spot. Just put her up here, no? I think we actually just put her up here. No, Akshan dirties the game. No, wait, no, Akshan... Vayne Top exists to just try to completely invalidate somebody. It's like, no, no interacting with me. It's all jungle intervention. Oh, but it's all jungle intervention! That's a synchronization issue. It's like, when do I deal with the Vayne? Can you help me deal with the Vayne? Did you fuck up your Vayne lane before I could get there? Ah, now I can't gank. So yeah, Vayne gets to go high. What else do we have left to work with? We have Akali, Cassiopeia, Graves, Hecarim, Jarvan, Nocturne, Rost, Riven, Rumble, Ryze, Shyvana, Silas, Taric, Tristana, Udyr, Urgot, Volibear. So some of these should absolutely be talked about. Like, we should definitely try to talk about Urgot. We should definitely try to talk about Rumble. Definitely try to talk about Riven. Definitely try to talk about Akali. Like, these champions are probably our highest priority to do. We can definitely leave some extras unknown, and that's okay. We were just talking about Riven earlier. She doesn't dramatically change how the game works. There's no big warp factor. She doesn't change how the game works for her teammates. There's no negative warp factor. No real big offensive utility. I know she's got her stun, but it's a little inconsistent. It's not like Jack's Counter-Strike or anything like that. She is proactive and aggressive. That does augment her power slightly. Okay, so I mean, like, she is slightly improved from just being an aggressive champion. With a lot of interaction-based matchups. Urgot. Okay, so I need somebody to help me patch up a hole in my knowledge on Urgot. Is anybody ready? Urgot, to me, is a weird control champion. I do believe that Urgot is best enabled by a bait and punish composition or by certain pick compositions. That being said, despite the fact that I think Urgot is control-oriented and defensive, the Urgot players just fucking kill people sometimes, like completely randomly. Always in the 1v1, not necessarily in team fights. You do still have to play around Urgot specifically in team fights and stuff. We don't like that in Platinum. That inherently means Urgot gets like around here, but is there something I'm missing about how his lane phase plays out? Like, he's just... I remember watching VTS, which is Masters Capped, like, because I was on the analyst desk. And the team who won VTS just picked Urgot because their top player was an Urgot main. And he just murdered everyone. Like, he just killed people. It's like, well, what are you doing? Like, and then I guess he found some flanks, and... yeah, it's weird. There's a reason you don't... I mean, he even had the best itemization of his life over the last few patches. Until it all got nerfed again, but... Urgot was so happy with, like, Rav Jack Show. Rav Cleaver Jack Show. Dude, like, he's so good with Cleaver. I mean, this is coming from the perspective of someone who played Urgot support, too, where I don't get to be randomly proactive, right? I get to use him as a counterpick to Leona when our team needs physical damage. We're going to move on while we're kind of thinking about that, and we can come back to it. For now, Urgot slightly devalued based on the mid-game. Surely the way Singed distorts the game is appealing, right? But he doesn't distort it like that badly. It's just the lane phase. It's just the lane phase, and then he becomes a completely normal champion. Singed grows up, takes his normal pills once the mid-game hits. His laning doesn't get punished as much as it should, probably. Would you say that's then all interaction-based laning? Everything's interaction-based in top lane. What am I saying? You know what, Karibo? I would imagine that just makes him better in Diamond. Kind of. Cass requires specific matchup knowledge. Pretty sure she will struggle if she can't hit Qs. I don't think we have to worry about that mechanical barrier here. If you're picking Cassiopeia top here, you probably are reasonably mechanically competent on her. I guess, you know what, we will say she's slightly improved, though, because, again, that requires, like some of these picks that require specific jungle intervention are going to receive it, but not always at the best times. And the top laners are definitely not setting up their lanes perfectly for junglers to show up. Top laners top laners in Platinum know how to play their lanes. They don't know how to play their lanes for the sake of somebody else, right? So Cassiopeia probably slightly better. I think Urgot probably slightly devalued. Because, yeah, we haven't done our Diamond level of play study yet, and that's going to get complicated and weird. Because there are still many, many, many mistakes being made in Diamond. Any other weird control kind of styles that lose their value in this level. Lilia's matchups are not necessarily interaction based. They're just like, do you have this answer to me? Yes, I lose. No, I win. So she doesn't get any boons from that. She's weird, reactive, slightly. Or maybe not. Because the gates would be... Is she... In the context of top lane, Lilia can just be a menace if you pick her right. She can be. We'll probably see how she lands after her next round of buffs. I feel like Lilia is completely incapable of building, like, actual AP right now. It's all demonic tank stuff. Like, that's the only thing that wins. It's the only thing that actually feels good on the champion. So I'm actually really glad to hear that her next set of buffs are AP ratio buffs. But at the same time, Demonic's being nerfed, so let's just hope she lands in a decent spot. Top laners are definitely allowed to do their own thing more than other champions on their teams, but I mean, I'm trying to reconcile while Akshan gets to be up here while Urgot has to be down here. Does Urgot ask anything more of his teammate? I think you could have a reasonable expectation that Akshan's not helping you while Urgot kind of pretends that, like, he kind of looks like he's going to. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's... Ugh. Vic and Damage Boy on top. He's a matchup knowledge check. Yeah, he's a good matchup knowledge check. But the reason he hits slightly devalued is because the way he plays out compositionally is weird. It's weird. So I think he goes here. Oh, yeah. No, he's the best. He's, like, besides Alawi, I think he's the best on counter engage, actually. But bait and punish is poor in Platinum. Bait and punish archetypes are poor in Platinum. I think playing around him is awkward. I think Akshan should just be down here. Because he's also a little awkward. Is he? Rumble top lane, are you... You do not gain any interaction-based matchups. You do not gain any specific... Yeah, okay. There's no change on him. I like Urgot a lot. I wish he were easier to play around. Okay. The champions missing are Graves, Hecarim, Jarvan, Nocturne, Rost, Ryze, Shyvana, Silas, Taric, Tristana, Udyr, and Volibear. Do we feel comfortable placing any of them right now with our current knowledge? Graves top is simple aggro. He's probably always slightly better. Hecarim, Jarvan, Nocturne, Rost. think your champion can actually get devalued just from being uncommon and weird to practice. Maybe. That might mean Rost gets lowered a little bit, but that would be inconsistent with the rest of what we've done. Tristana, big pain in the ass. Definitely up here. Actually, you know what? Sure, you can go up here. You don't think it's the move in Platinum specifically. There are definitely Rise top viable situations. Could I name them off the top of my head, though? Do I have that knowledge? It would have to be a tank matchup, no? If the champ is rare, it would be less likely that the enemy... Oh, I guess it kind of offsets it then. So if you... No, and we're also assuming that the people playing these champions are experienced with them, like in the bot lane list, the Senna player knows how to play Senna, but then the support has to kind of conform to it, and it's weird, and that gates Senna. Changes how you have to play around her. I would be comfortable... Okay, let's review our lists. We have 3 ideal champions. Shen at the top. Zac warps things, just screws up the game, dirties it up, lanes well. Rengar is up here. The only unlocked champion we have right now is Gragas, who becomes much better because all of his bad matchups kind of like evaporate based on being interaction based. Empowered champions: Akshan, Karma, Ornn, Pantheon, Yorick, Tryndamere, Sion, Vayne, Tristana. All of these champions are like very aggressive, have some degree of warp factor. Yep. Then these champions are just slightly empowered by being aggressive, right? Xante, Malphite, yep. Just regular old aggros and like big CCs and like a bunch of matchup, interaction-based matchups, right? And then these champions with no change are either tanks or... I guess in Yone's case, he's kind of limited. Okay, you get to move up a little bit. Yeah. These champions are all either tanks or have very binary matchup spreads that don't change. Like, you can't play them so wrongly that it all of a sudden is outplayable, or... Quinn? Quinn is in no change because this champion is just way, way too dangerous to include in your game. There is a warp factor, though. The top laner starts roaming. I can't justify having Quinn down here. I can't justify having Quinn down there. Slightly devalued. I mean, champions that require more playing around, champions that are a lot more reactive, champions that take longer to come online. These are champions that are like composition dependent and like very slow, very control, very reactive. I mean, actually, truthfully, no, because Kayle becomes a problem. Kayle becomes a threat. We have no gated champions because I haven't found any top laners that like lose their pick conditions, and then these doomed ones are like the giga control, like enchanter strategies. Yeah. Okay, I think any complaints with this so far? Any last minute changes? Any like non-compelling arguments that I've made? Are we, again, first draft, we could sit on it and revise it, but I don't know if you'd put Garen in empowered just because he relies on his jungle top. Anecdotally, Garen just starts winning things where you wouldn't expect him to. I don't think he has become jungle reliant yet in Platinum. Yeah, in experience, it's just like, your Garen should lose this situation, and then doesn't. Because what he should lose to is a specific way the enemy plays it, right? You think Volley is devalued? On what criteria, Zeknal? To be clear, Volibear sucks. Volibear is fucking bad, okay? But is he worse in Platinum? A fundamentally reactive champion limits your power. No. Being an aggro champ that relies on specific synchronous macro movements. No. Must plan for your power 2 to 3 minutes. Actually, I disagree. I think he actually goes here instead. Like, it's an Elise thing. Not to say he's good, because he's not. But Volibear would become slightly more valuable in Platinum. Well, at least we placed that. Thank you, Zeknal. There's, like, some degree of, like, changing fundamentals. Like, oh, I can live here in most situations. Oh, wait, it's Volibear. Uh-oh. Like, okay, whatever. We'll leave it as is. We need to get a move on, I think. I have made so many typos. Again, we're about to reset this graph. We're about to change it. We're about to destroy it. Are we good? Are we done? I'm gonna use the washroom actually, and when I come back, we'll find out. You just notice? Yeah, we that headshot that was taken a while ago was like, it wasn't ever supposed to be a profile picture. I just turned it into one and used it in all my branding. And that was me like 5 years ago, 4 to 5 years ago. I was much younger then. So we changed. I got it cleaned up. I went to the barber's. I got a professional headshot done. I got it digitally touched up. And now we're using it. And it looks clean. I'm happy with it. That is me like literally one day after the barber. Okay, I am going to use the washroom, and if anybody has... Oh, you know what? Even better, I'm leaving the list on screen. If anybody has any problems with it while I'm gone, please write it in chat. I'll be right back, and I'll just take a moment to rest my brain, reset here, and we'll move on to mid lane. Okay. It doesn't seem like we had any big, like, controversial things to talk about, so we're good. I've saved the list. We're going to reset this. We're going to get started on mid lane. And I've forgotten again. Moved around a little much. Okay. Let's get started. Mid lane. Mid lane champions. Okay, we're not raiding Aesol because he's just about to change fundamentally. Put Brandon, Casio, Cho, Corky, Diana can go. Echo. Biz, Galio, Gangplank, Gragas, Graves, Heimer, Irelia. I'm trying to be conservative about what I'm including a little bit. Current opinions about Space Dragon, like current Space Dragon or the next Space Dragon? Because I'm about to start investigating him. In-houses are coming on Wednesday. The changes. Okay. It looks like his identity is changing quite a bit. I'm going by what they've shown and by the little bit of developer commentary that I've heard. There's a universe in which Aurelion Sol becomes an appropriate pick for a dive comp, and I find that very interesting. I think the changes from a gameplay perspective look cool and fun. I think that's exciting. It's just weird. Like, I'm immediately going to, like, how do you have to play around him? Like I would not be shocked if he's a Roa user. I think he probably has to be a Roa user because he's going to need the durability, but what if he doesn't do enough damage? Like, that's... So yeah, he's, I would not be surprised if he encountered range matchup issues. I would not be surprised if, like, he struggled to interact early. But he looks like a lot of fun, and it looks like there's going to be some really devastating ways to enable him. Like probably the ways that you enable Sivir, right? Like, big Warden lines probably would do a lot with Aurelion Sol. Rakan would probably do a lot with Aurelion Sol. That's kind of where we're starting. So, Jackie, we're now moving on to the exact same thing we just did, but for the mid lane. The current one-tricks don't lose their champ. They will. It's... His positioning is changing drastically. They will lose their champ. He is different. He was not the same roam type of champ at all. In the early game, at least. They will lose their champion. Yeah. There's not that many mid lane. There's a lot, actually, usually. There's a couple that I'm, like, starting to remove. Because, like, ordinarily I would have Psychosis, and I would talk about Aatrox mid, and I would talk about Bard mid, and I would talk about, like, you know, some of these weirdos, Ezreal mid, and I would talk about Fiora mid, which actually is something that's worth exploring, and actually Garen should be on this list. And technically so should Alawi, and technically so should Ivern, and actually Ivern, yes, absolutely, is going on. But, like, you see, I'm trying to be conservative about what I'm including, and we're not doing as many, like, weirdo picks. Cog actually belongs nowadays again. LeBlanc. I'll mention Lisa. Oh, Kled is just better mid lane than he is top, I think. Lissandra, Lucian, Lux, Malphite, Malzahar. Yeah, just get ready for the rest of the list to fill out. Sejuani's too hyper niche to really talk about. Skipping the Pike, good. Okay, we'll talk about him. He actually might be slightly improved, who knows. TF, Twitch, Vagar, Vel'Koz, Vex, Victor, Zach, Pentaflex, just... Zillion should belong here too. Okay, so we're gonna start with this list, and there are weird things going on. For one, Victor is a better champion in Platinum, but I could not explain to you why. I know that he simply performs better as an early pick in this level of amateur play than he does in pro. And I'm trying to explain why under our criteria. Not better farm, no, because he's better here than he is at top. It's not better farm. Not top lane, top level. He's better here than he is at top level. So it can't be better farm. Is it just greater chaos? Like, this is kind of one of those things where it feels like it's greater, like it kind of feels like it's that one, right? But then do we have to reevaluate everything under the understanding that, like, there's a little more chaos, there's a little more aggression, there's more but less refined aggression, greater quantity, less precision? He fucking hurts. True. Combat stacking mechanics. These prey on greater aggression with lower precision. I.e. Syndra shards. Victor, augments. Yes, Syndra probably also becomes, like, slightly better, yeah? Anything that stacks via combat? Did we miss anything that stacks via combat in the other lists? I made some, like, bad typos on this one, so I'm gonna have to redo this one right before we make the video, but did we miss anything with, like, combat stacking mechanics? I guess we missed Kindred, didn't we? Who actually should get, on average, a couple more marks per game from kills. We missed Kindred. Kindred should be up there. Oh, I don't want to remake that. Kindred should be slightly improved. What else? Is anyone else, like, here? Pike counts, like, off cuts and stuff. Greater aggression, lower precision. Just take it to Photoshop later. Maybe I should. Oh, but no, but Kindred's #1 in the list is the problem. I guess we could replace them with it's so ugly. I don't know. I'd rather just do it here. I don't want to, but I want to, you know? Swain Soul Fragments. Vagar Stacks. Not NASA Stacks. That's not one that gets... I mean, that's not just combat. Okay, so it's like, immediately... Swain should be here. Asol, when he goes live in New State, would go up there. But for now, we're not even going to talk about him, truthfully, because we're not ready to. Galio warps the game. I don't know if he belongs up there, though, is the thing. Seraphine is just a champion that wins at platinum level. Like, she just has big abilities that win the game. That's why she's actually the dominant reason that we said big skill shots win. Like, are we missing any other, like... I mean, yeah, no, these champions are noticeably stronger. They're not just a little bit better, they're noticeably stronger. Jace is a bit better. Kled is a bit better. LeBlanc is a bit better. Silas is a bit better. The aggressive ones, right? The ones that are more likely to catch, like, errors. Twisted Fate is... Like, actually... Twisted Fate breaks the game. When he's strong. But synchronization issues kind of reduce the power of his warp factor, no? Oh, no, that's big. That's big, actually. He should be just winning everything. Like, this is a big warp factor. Oh. Katarina is better. Katarina's probably, like, actually here. I mean, it is competitive, but mental stack, like... Vhagar gets no change because, like, he's one of the stacks. Vex is, like, definitely a bit better. But I'm not quantifying it very well is the thing. And mage matchups are not all interaction-based. Like, they are very range-based, right? Scary Knife Lady does get out of control, yes, and this is, like, where the mechanics start to be competent enough to play her. Remember, she would have been up here in IBS, but we had to put her, like, low. Kassadin gets out of control very quickly. Oh, okay. One bad day, champions. Get out of control fast. If you only need to commit one mistake to lose into them, they are platinum dominant. One bad day, champions. That's Kassadin. That's Katarina. Who probably, frankly, unlocks some extra pick conditions. This is empowered, but it's still not good. Now we have to check for one bad day champions and other roles who we underrated. God damn it. Okay, we'll do this at the end. We'll do a quick cycle through at the end before we record the YouTube video. Okay, who else do you need to commit, like, one mistake into? Yeah, Kiana? It's more awareness about dagger placement. Yeah, okay, she is hard, right? She is hard. She is easy to understand, like, mechanically, I agree. But getting the correct dagger placement is mechanically hard. At least to the point that silver players cannot fucking play her, so... Okay, reactive champs. Very fundamentally reactive champs. You know what? You're empowered. You're a little bit better. Who is very, very, very reactive and just very control. Well, technically, Malzahar, Anivia, but what they do is so gross that, like, you can't You can't help but... Like, we can't justify this. We cannot justify this. So here they go. Mouse has the button, true. See, because util mids don't actually... That's not a gate. The jungler doesn't have to play around them, like, differently. They're just allowed to use their power as a duo. Like... Warp factor. Big warp factor. Big warp factor. Zilean ruins the game in Platinum. The Cringe Brothers. Probably no change, slightly stronger. Or like slightly stronger both. I mean, Yasuo changes how fights play out, for sure. Zilean and Plat better due to jungle intervention. Zilean and Plat is better because people can't shut down Zilean, and then he just wins every fight. They can shut him down if, like, the matchup is, like, designed to murder Zilean pre-6, but if it's, like, a mage matchup versus Zilean, like, there's a lot of situations where, like, you just don't kill him. And then, yes, of course, he's... don't forget that the junglers aren't going to be creating, like, tempo shoves, so he's still not as good as he technically could be, but he's actually probably... He probably still is peaking because of that whole, like, not being punished thing. Essentially, it's just Platinum hates warp factors, and Zilean changes the game. A lot. A lot, a lot. Maybe we only put him in unlocked, though. Nah, we're fine. Okay, Renekton wouldn't gain any pick conditions, nor is he, like, inherently better here. No change here. Theoretical Ivern is, like, insane, but... I mean, no, he's just a util mid. He's not inherently better or worse. I'm actually really enjoying AP Ivern lately. I'm realizing how insane his ratios are, and so, like, I'm kind of tempted to build Moonstone Deathcap sometime. Or I have done Night Harvester Flowing Water. That one's fun. I should always build Mech Eyes, like, frankly. I don't know why I have not been picking up Dark Seal. It's a bad habit of mine. There's a way to reword this. Global mids. Global mid. Global mid. I didn't consider Karthus's warp factor enough in the jungle list. slightly better because you anticipate more mistakes. It was actually quite good when Rav was in its best state. Okay, so no, it boils down... No, I've just had another revelation. If you're champion... So we can't predict what mistakes are going to be made in Platinum exactly, right? But we are expecting mistakes. We can't... I thought that means you can't draft disrespectfully, like anticipating mistakes. But no, it means that if your champion is very, very capable of reacting to mistakes, they are far better. That's what that means. You don't know what the mistake is going to be or when it's going to come. But if you're capable of punishing it, you're just stronger. Where's Zillion on my support list? What the hell is he doing down there? He needs to go way back up. Count how many Vlads into their pool. This is one where personal experience is really messing with me. I'm just tapping things on my desk. It's making too much noise. Okay, who loses pick conditions? Does anyone lose pick conditions? Does anybody lose pick conditions? Reactive champion. Aggro champ that relies on specific synchronous macro movements. Planning 2 to 3 minutes in the future. Demanding specific micro or macro attention from your allies. Complicates the game. The best candidate for a champion who's like should be weaker, yeah. But then why is Kassadin? Okay, Kassadin just is broken, but that's not justification for him being higher. But Kale's not a one bad day champion to the degree of Kassadin, I guess. Oh yeah, who are the one bad day champions too? Like, just who do you really not want to get going? Vex, you really don't want to get going. You really don't want to let her get going. She might be unlocked. I'm looking at Rise right now, and I'm trying to figure out if we care about him in Platinum. Like, we should, at least a bit, no? Or... he demands specific weird attention from his allies. Is a little weird to play around. The macro changes. He loses value because we actually can't play him into all... He should be able to be playable into like 90% of matchups. It's so simple to gank a Rise. Gank 4 Arise, I should say. Gank 4 Arise. The funniest part about it is he's positive. Like, that shouldn't happen. Not in solo queue. We need to take his item away again. He got both his items back. He just instantly became a problem because he got both of his items back. Okay, Scion is slightly devalued. Why? Because Scion mid is a Stonewall who just, like, tries to invalidate, and then what's going to happen is a bad roam is going to occur, and it's going to probably find some kills. So Scion mid is slightly devalued. Similar to Nasus, I think. He's a very control champion. Okay, I actually slightly devalue Azir. Yeah, you're not going to kill him. He's just going to stonewall you, but then they're going to give up and go somewhere else. Like... And then they can't kill him, but they can kill everybody else. And then the AD carry can kill Scion. Because the AD carry has gotten fed. But at least that's the rationale. Like, I don't tend to pick Scion into mages. I pick Scion into assassins who should be lane locked, right? Yeah, mid lane. Hi, Paradox. We're stuck. We're a little bit stuck. Yeah, mid just does things. Mid's allowed to have agency, so... That's very reactive. I mean, Karthus... I mean, oh, no, but he can... Walk up, one-shot the wave, leave. Yeah, but I am assuming what would happen is, like, the mid laner would just incur some small losses. And, like, take the bad roam. Or, maybe not. Maybe not. Even so, that's a control. Ah, this is hard. Even so, this is a reactive strategy, right? Scion mid is a reactive strategy. Oh, you're talking about into mages. Yeah, into mages, that would be... I don't pick him into mages because it's not what I, like, associate Scion with, usually. But I guess you're kind of right, aren't you? Tank, like my default tank into mages would be more along the lines of Ornn. Something that's less of a neutralizer, something that plays a little more aggressively around the jungler, like. Which is why, where is he? No change? He has no change, right? No, he has big skill shot, and so he's better. Big skill shot. Oh, no, Gragas, tank Gragas mid. We've done that one. We've done that one. Or AP Gragas mid. You could do either one. He's at least a little bit better here. Warp factors, aggression, offensive utility, big skill shots, interaction-based matchups, combat stacking mechanics, one bad day champs. One bad day champs. One bad day champs. That slightly enhances Talon then. I would assume no change in Ziggs. Zach does warp the game a lot. I mean, so actually, I'm just going to put him here. Warp factor. So, yeah. Warp factor. Okay, you have a small warp factor, but it's not like a huge warp factor. Where did I put you in jungle? I put you in regular enhanced, so you will stay. Did I make the same typo? God fucking damn it! What's wrong with me? Oh, that's all. Oh, okay, we're just clicking things now. Can totally see that. Yeah, mechanically complex, weird, bad. Bad to play against. Trind, I would 100% call a one bad day champion in the mid lane. Rumble's very reactive, but also just kills you. I think he's probably a no-change champ. Are there really that many, like, fine? Is it really? Like, every platinum list is so top-heavy. Every list is so top-heavy. Oh my god. Victory is much easier to play, yeah. Much more forgiving. Okay, of Annie, Brand, Cassiopeia, Cho'Gath, Diana, Echo, Gangplank, Garen, Graves, Irelia, Kog'Maw, Lee Sin, Lucian, Lux, Malphite, Nautilus, Set, Singed, Soraka, Vel'Koz, Xerath, is anything far, far, far too reactive, like something too fundamentally control-oriented. I put Azir here because when you pick him too recklessly, you actually go towards scaling control comps and it's uncomfortable. Okay, Garen mid is solid. Is that better in Platinum or just solid? That's the thing. Set is empowered. Mid laners probably don't respect him as well, so Set would become noticeably better in Platinum play. Because let's see if it holds up. Maybe you're right. Does he warp the game tremendously? Not really. He's pretty honest. Fundamentally proactive, aggressive. Yeah, he kind of is. Offensive utility. He does have that. His matchups are not necessarily interaction-based mid lane. Mid lane matchups are. I'm going to put Set in. He's slightly improved. He's enhanced. These are pretty honest, I guess. Singed is weird. It's funny, Singed is like we were saying earlier when we were doing top lane, Singed is a weirdo who scales into an honest champion. Like, Singed just stops being weird once the mid game hits. You know what? Like, these artillery is inherently like a bit control oriented. Ziggs avoids it by being DPS. Kog'Maw probably actually gets noticeably weaker here. Although he is his items though. He's got Seraph's back, guys. He's got Seraph's back. Fundamentally reactive champ limits power, aggro champion. Control-oriented. If you default to control archetypes, you are weaker. What, Singed? Yeah, that's reasonable. Did we make that mistake? Did we forget to... One sec. Let me... Any archetype archetype tendencies here that I have to care. Wow, I don't have archetype tendencies written for a lot of people. I'm just looking for any controls. Like Anivia would, yeah, but we intentionally chose to not lower Anivia. Teamfight control, he was slightly weakened by that. I really don't have enough of these filled out to balanced control. Yeah, Cho'Gath's control, we lowered him, right? We didn't place him. Control team fight, that's true. Aggro. Oops. Team fight control. No allowy mid. We were trying to be a little conservative with what we included so I wouldn't get flamed in YouTube comments, but that's kind of a coward's way out, isn't it? I've been actually responding to TikTok comments lately, so I'm a little thicker skinned now. But slightly devalued, just like she is in top lane. Do I still have my paint thing open? No. I think Platinum is her worst elo, basically. I think, yes, she is a compositional counter pick, but compositional counter picks are at their worst in Platinum. Where Bait and Punish should win, it doesn't. Where control archetypes should be strong, they're not. So yeah, that's why Alawi actually gets a little devalued here. You should have seen, like, there's so many comments on TikTok that just say, you're wrong, and then give no follow-up answer. Like, okay, so what's right? Like, Asol isn't even on the list. We are not including Asol immediately before he gets reworked. Hell no. Absolutely not. Jax is fun. I'm having a good time with Jax. I've only been able to play like one game of him, but... Okay, you lean us towards control very quickly. Any other, like, actual control champs in here? I mean, Seraphine, like, some of the utility mids tend to do that, but they're also predominantly team fight, so we're good. He gets to go. Azir gets to go at the top. Heimer isn't enhanced. No, because if you're outside of spot lane, no, maybe mid lane. No, but then he gets hit by matchups. Heimerdinger outside of the bot lane, I think, does lose access to his most proactive tools and then becomes a very awkward control champion that doesn't offer the same benefits as Heimerdinger support or Heimerdinger AD carry. He actually should not be in slightly devalued for mid lane. That one is true. But for top lane, he does get devalued a little bit. Just because, like, again, we need to avoid playing control comps at all cost. Right? We need to avoid those for sure. Like, that was one of my biggest things that I learned from Season 12 Platinum play. You can't make Platinum players play control. They are not comfortable. They're so uncomfortable with that. So, I mean, all we have left are, like, reasonably aggressive champions. I mean, like, slightly improved, right? Slightly improved. Gangplank is a control champion, but he, actually, so yeah, and specifically mid lane, because he is definitely a stagnation pick down here, right? This is a Clash tournament perspective, yes, it is. We are trying to talk about this in, like, coordinated environments, but just because it's coordinated doesn't mean players are good enough to answer certain things, right? Like, Katarina still gains some value, right? Like, It's not a very, like, confident tone of voice, I'll say, but. Kill. Soraka doesn't generate control comps necessarily. Isn't my statement more on solo queue? No, you cannot make platinum teams play control because what they have learned from solo queue does not translate well to control comps in coordinated play. You could dedicate some practice time, but it will never pan out as well as you hope. Because, like, again, the primary basis of platinum play is that platinum players understand the fundamentals, but they struggle to get into specifics, and they struggle to build on their mental stacks and stuff like that, and then just, like, fundamentally shifting the way the game is played is, like, gross and uncomfortable. And it stems from how solo queue is practiced, but it affects competitive as well by, like, a lot. Like, I have never been able to get my teams to slow down enough to play proper control or to, like, figure out how to play. Like, I still haven't figured out how to play without mid-prio, even though it's a completely legitimate way of, like, playing neutralized control. Like, so. Is there really, like, nothing... Just... What's doomed? What's doomed in mid lane? Is there anything doomed in mid lane? Like, we're expecting the lists to be top-heavy, but... Is nothing doomed? Like, Lee Sin? Okay, Lee Sin's dog shit, but not because he's in platinum. Actually, Lee Sin would probably be... And, like, a little bit here, and, like, you know, a little bit here, and, oh, what don't mind if I do. I mean, realistically here. Bard tier. That's a good one. It does. Probably no change Lux. I'm not placing Singed. I can't do it. Lucian, no change. I mean, Lucian's slightly better. Brand, no change. Wow, is this really what our mid lane list looks like? No way, right? No way, right? This cannot be right. Okay, our ideal champs look good. Our unlocked champs look good. I don't blame you. It's actually an unholy trinity. Anivia just hasn't caught on yet. There's not just 2 of them. There's 3 of them. Cass, though? Cass is, like, right behind them, I think. Cass is harder to pick. And she's not quite as broken because I don't think she should be a Roa user. Maybe she's doing it. She's doing it. Is she... I guess she's doing it. Wow, they really... Oh my god, they buffed this item. They buffed this item so hard that Cassiopeia went back to it. What? They buffed Rod so hard that Cassiopeia swapped off a damage item. Oh, 1v1. Okay, let's talk. Twitch, tremendous warp factor, really gross. Warp factor, stack, stack, stack. One bad day, warp factor, one bad day, warp factor, one bad day, yeah. All slightly vaguely aggressive. Right? Just some decent mages in here, and like, Veigar salvaged by his stacking mechanic, or he'd be down here. Corki gets out of control. Renekton not enhanced. Where'd I put him? Oh, okay. What was this about? Mid lane. It was a contact, and Zed's not there either. I'm having a really bad hair day. What is this? This is so gross. I took a shower like momentarily before getting on stream, and I guess it backfired. I need to look good for the recording. I originally put Renekton in no change because I did not feel that into the average mid lane matchup. Yeah, no, that was it. Renekton into the average melee matchup did not actually gain more agent. Average mid, not average melee. And the average mid matchup did not actually gain more aggressive agency, so I kept him in no change. Is there anybody else like that in enhanced who should be dropped down? Because Renekton's roam potential is not, like, outstanding, right? Is there anybody else like that? Lucian might be. But is that just because he's weak? Yeah, yeah. The champion is fundamentally different. Just a Lucian hater. Well, I mean, he kind of relies entirely on vigilance to do damage. And he's not getting vigilance here. And so he's not generating more aggressive stuff than he ordinarily would. And so, yeah, okay, I'll leave him there. What's Talia doing here? Talia looks like kind of noticeably out of place. It's, the minor warp factor of her wall, but then held back by, like, the time to scale sort of thing. She's just a little bit better. Ahri's just a little bit better. God damn. And then the only champions who are, like, are slightly devalued is Azir tends you towards control comps. These tend you towards control comps. Yeah, same here. Very reactive, very reactive, very, very, very reactive. And then just these, like, long-ass, no impact, like... They don't go as supernova as Cass, but... Why is Zillion in the top? Have you ever seen a Zillion lose a Platinum Amateur game? Zillion just breaks the game. We know how to get kills. Zillion stops us from getting kills. Karma doesn't warp the game to the same degree of Zillion. She is just a stable utility mid, and she is very strong, but she's not stronger for being in Platinum. Zillion is quite a lot stronger for being in Platinum. So that's my reasoning there. Okay, well, I mean, I'm happy with this draft of the list, I guess. Is there anything else, like, noticeably out of place? Like, I'm just looking through my enhanced to see if there's a mistake in there. I guess I'm trying to reconcile the Kassadin versus Cog thing in my head. Because Kog'Maw also goes Supernova, eventually. Oh, but he's, like, very artillery. He's not in-your-face killing. Yeah, that's why. This hurts to always see Nico so low in every list. I know, it does. She's just not at her maximum potential in Platinum. You can't kill... Yeah, it's so gross. It's so... Fuck Zillion. This champ sucks. If Zillion were more popular, Zillion would be nerfed to the ground. So abuse him while you can. Because I love cringe, and Zillion is like the grandfather of cringe. I love cringe. I can see no major criticisms with this list right away. But we do need to revisit some of our old ones very quickly to make sure they're okay still. I'm going to save this. What did you learn, Paradox? USB pencil. What? What? Huh? I guess that makes sense. Like, for power, I guess. Okay, so the bot lane list has, like, some typos that I hate, and so we're just gonna redo that one. We're good with mid before I reset. We're good with mid. Everybody okay? No complaints. If I don't see a complaint in like 15 seconds, I'm erasing it. I did just save it, so. There's no Brad. Okay, that's a... Do you... Paradox, have you ever played the Spell Thief Sparred Top? Okay, beautiful. We'll accept this. Let's go clean up our other lists now that we have done everything. We'll kind of double back, right? Ideal, unlocked, empowered, enhanced, no change, slightly devalued, impaired, gated, doomed. We're just like doubling back and cleaning up our 80 carry list, which had some typos, and we're just making sure that with our new criteria, it's still up to date. And our 80 carry list read as such. Here it is. I'm just going to move it to the other screen, and I'm going to copy it, and just bear with me while I don't read chat. It was Twitch, Draven, Seraphine, who gains more pick conditions, Lucian, who became noticeably stronger by being aggro, Karthus, who became noticeably stronger by just winning every lane, Ashe, Jhin, Swain, there was Neela, there was Samira, there was Jinx, Varus, Vayne, Ezreal, Kindred, Kai'Sa, Tristana. Where'd she go? Yasuo, and yes, I am remaking the entire list solely for the sake of correcting a typo. I'll look at chat in a little bit. Oh, what the hell is Xayah doing there? Xayah's in no change, but I think she should be slightly devalued. This is the role where Cho'Gath kind of just does get to aggro a bit. I'll keep Vhagar there for how he balances out. I'll put Victor up here slightly because we learned about the stacking thing. This begins the trend of anchors being low. Why was Kalista impaired? Do we remember? Kalista needs it to... it was warping the team. That's right. It was warping the team. Which is not a downside. You can play aggro. Like Platinum teams can play aggro comps. Fine. They can play them decently well. But Kalista just puts some like weird expectations on everyone. That's right. Okay. So what else? What else was the problem, right? We had... Warp factors, fundamentally proactive, aggressive champs, offensive utility, big skill shots, combat stacking mechanics, one bad day champs, or any other one bad day champs. Okay, you are one bad day champs. You are one bad day champs for sure. So you should be moved up even further. So is Kai'Sa, to be honest. This is just the worst version of Draven. Slight disagree because the utility Kalista provides actually has merit in some situations. Garen ADC, not on this particular list. It's on my main list. Cat carrier. I mean, Trist is a one bad day champ too. Kaisa should be up here. Like, noticeably stronger. Kaisa is noticeably stronger. Kalista, yeah, that's fair, that's fair, that's fair. Okay. With this correction, we will actually just, again, making sure I didn't miss anyone. Don't think I did. Okay. Platinum bot 113.1. Replace it. Now he just waits. Doesn't seem to have changed. Alright, whatever. Next one. The next one is Jungle. Okay, we actually did need to slightly increase Kindred's rating. And I also wrote Enchanced here, so... Alright, let's do it. This sucks. Did I close that pic? What am I doing? P Jungle. Here we are. Alright, let's remake this list. Woohoo! Aren't you guys excited? Wow, I'm excited. Wow, 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 wow. That's awesome. I'm so glad I made that typo. Wow. God, I didn't even drag Belveth there. Vi. Silas. Rust. Regular Kane. You know, in hindsight, we really should have brushed up more on, like, all of the other principles before finishing these lists instead of just looking at boons and gates. That definitely would have helped me quite a lot. Like, there's a lot of good stuff to work with here. I mean, we did talk about, like, the jungle-specific stuff, right? Where the lack of 1v1 invades do cause an increase in power for some champions. Like Talon. Talon was a big one. Wow, meta really, really fucking doesn't matter here, does it? Wow, it really doesn't. It really, really doesn't. It's only just what you would expect to see more. There are so many champions that just become better champions because you're in Platinum. So many. It's so top-loaded. Am I blind? Hello? Rumble? Where's Rumble? There he is. And Kindred, the entire reason we did this, plus this. Okay. Hurry up. Graves. Hackerim. Be with you in a moment, chat. Kiana. Echo. Udyr. Darius. Ornn. Gragas. Skarner. Kha'Zix. Zed. Jax. Where's Jax? Where's Jax? Where's Jax? Slightly devalued. Olaf. window. Where's Lilia? Ah, I can't read. There she is. Lilia. Shyvana. Tarek. Poppy. 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 Should be. Yeah, I was pointing my mouse right over where she should be. Okay, we have to talk about Karthus before we end this list. Okay, hi chat. I can see you again. Karthus. Karthus became very empowered in bot lane from his combat potential. Karthus in the jungle has a little bit of a warp factor. But he's also very much a control champion. Very much. Okay, I'm more comfortable with that. Replace it. Boom. Okay. Now, mid lane, the one we just did, we're reasonably sure is fine. Okay. Next one. Supports. Is anything missing here? We see the really aggro ones. We see Zilean, truthfully, should be way higher than he is. I don't want to remake this list just for Zilean. Can I just, you know... Why does it default to System 32? Hold on, I can draw that better. Or I could just like... No, I want to draw it. It's funnier. Okay, there we go. Lovely. Hello, can we reload? No? Whatever. Great. Okay, there's Zilean. Are we happy with this list? I still don't know why Misfortune isn't doomed. I think it was a joke. Whatever. Sejuani's down here because she takes a lot of synchronization. Yeah, okay. And then Toph, we were just... You know what? I think I'm pretty comfortable with the lists. I think so, yeah. I think we did. Okay. Let's get ready for a YouTube video. How do you guys feel about that? Woo! Quinn's making content! Woo! I need some water, though. Let's get some water. I'll be right back. Stretch. Drink water. Oh, this is, I'm like, I'm just doing some basic movements and my airway is opening up a lot and it feels really good. Oh, but I have to go again. I forgot to use the washroom. I just filled up my water. All right, chat, let's make some content. I just need to remind myself, like, what exactly we talked about. So we have our basic theory, right? It's improper to draft around those mistakes. Don't draft around mistakes explicitly, but do favor champions who can more easily punish mistakes. There we go. We're making content. Woo! Matchups, right? Interaction-based, right? So we're talking about, like, you know, sometimes you have interaction-based matchups that are, like, you know, the interaction is, like, brain dead, and then it matters, like, because it's always going to come into play. But if it requires, like, literally any thought or a knowledge check, or things like this, remember, Platinum players are more likely to find themselves in a position where they can't generate their winning interactions. Like, I'm thinking Zyra Thresh lanes, where the Thresh just gets bush control and the Zyra forgets what her winning interaction is and loses the lane, right? Yeah. We have archetypes. We're talking about how control is bad. Synchronization and wave management. The worst skill is synchronization. I'm just, again, reading all of my notes to make sure we have something good, right? Players are almost always out of sync with their atypical duos. Side lane can struggle to set up waves sharply to accommodate jungle mid-intervention. Champions that require proper wave management to counter or to dive are slightly empowered. Ugh, I think that property might have been forgotten in our lists. Is that a problem? Because we have, like... That implies Kale should be a little stronger, no? That implies the scaling peck should be, like, a little bit stronger. No, but it's only slight. Yeah, okay, never mind. Okay, yeah, I think we're ready. Are we ready, guys? I'm just going to be recording, and we're going to, like, cut it straight out of the Twitch VOD, I think. Okay. This is funny. So we just finished the levels of play study for Platinum play. I jumped straight from IBS to Platinum because, you know, Gold is kind of like the best of both worlds. It kind of combines the best and worst properties of each, so I figured it would be easier to jump to Platinum and then kind of sandwich them in, right? But anyway, Platinum is generally understood now. We've been through a ton of VODs. We've gotten through a lot of, like, personal experience, because I have a lot of experience, like, playing with and around Platinum Amateur in particular. So what exactly did we learn? How do you actually optimize your strategy for Platinum competitive play? Well, the number one thing to understand are these, like, core tendencies, right? Platinum players understand the basics of the game, but that's the key. They understand the basics. They have these core set of fundamentals that they know how to use, and anything that shakes up those fundamentals are deeply, deeply, deeply uncomfortable. You see here, Platinum players will very frequently struggle to apply specifics beyond their basics or advanced concepts. Their mental stacks have very limited space. It's easy to get overwhelmed in Platinum. We struggle to think quickly and creatively at the same time. So once a fight is broken out, right, you're not going to be able to take in a lot more macro information in Platinum. So players struggle a lot in Platinum to play reactively, and think about why that is, right? In solo queue, you learn how to play aggressively, you learn how to push a lead, you learn how to, snowball and win. So you don't really understand as well how to, like, play a slower, team-oriented game, reactively, being able to read what your opponent is doing. Those are not the core set of fundamentals that have been learned. So, in Platinum, players will make very frequently Players will very frequently make mistakes in Platinum, but you can't reliably predict what those mistakes are going to be. You know what, guys? I've made so many, like, verbal blunders already that I think I'm just going to full restarts. I don't want to do that much editing to deal with it, so... And it's fine to have a few here and there because it's live content, but... Okay, so we've just finished our levels of play study for Platinum. I started with IBS, I skipped past Gold, we did Platinum because when we come back to Gold, it's going to kind of be like the marriage between IBS and Plat, right? So it's just easier to do it this way. Plus, with Platinum, I have a lot more personal experience, like playing in Platinum Amateur Leagues, coaching Platinum Amateur Leagues, just I have a lot more connections in Platinum. It's easier to understand what the tendencies are for me, right? So how does Platinum work? How do we optimize our strategies for Platinum Amateur Leagues? Well, the number one thing to understand are the core fundamentals. Like, players understand the basics of the game, but that's the key. Players understand the basics. Anything beyond that, anything more complicated, specifics, advanced concepts, they will start to struggle to apply that. In Platinum, we have very limited mental stacks. We can't process all of the information at once. We don't want this extra layer of complexity, this extra warp factor that changes everything, because that's how communication breaks down. That's how macro calls get made incorrectly. That's how the game gets very, very messy very fast, right? Players struggle to think quickly and creatively. Once a fight is broken out, it's going to be hard to process more information, so some macro stuff can slip by, right? Warp factors win just off that level of discomfort with advanced concepts, specifics, things that shake up the fundamentals. That is the key principle of Platinum, warp factors. The other most important thing is that players do struggle to play reactively in Platinum. And think about why this is, right? In solo queue, we learn how to push the tempo. We learn how to play aggressively. We learn how to win lane, win game. We learn how to, like, kind of mold ourselves to the chaos of, like, all of this fighting in solo queue when things aren't kind of playing out properly. So those are the basics that were learned, right? The basics that were learned aren't how to play slowly as a team, slowly choking out the enemy's options until they have no options left and you win through that sort of scaling. We don't get to predict nearly as reliably what's going on in the enemy's heads, because we only really have room for, like, our basics and our games. So control, reactive play, definitely not what we like to do in Platinum. In Platinum, players will make very, very frequent mistakes, but you can no longer reliably predict what those frequent mistakes will be. It's very improper to draft around those mistakes. So you don't want to, like, explicitly draft around mistakes, but you do want to favor champions who can punish mistakes a lot more easily, right? We expect autopilot and macro inaccuracies above all. So, like, that's kind of the tendency, but again, we can't, like, predict exactly what's going on. Don't be as disrespectful as, like, say, in IBS drafts, right? I'm gonna allow myself to have a cut there and just kind of, like, breathe and stuff, right? Live recording is stressful. I liked it on TikTok when, I just learned how to make TikToks, like... Okay, thank you, Karibo. I just learned how to make TikToks, like, on my phone. And I really do like how you can just kind of, like, record clips and discard stuff, like, in order, and just like, oh, that's a good take, that's a good take, that's not, discard, that's a good take. Like, it's really nice. It's very simple. It's very easy to cut together, you know? It'll be just a moment. I'm just gonna wait through some shared space stuff, and then we'll go right back to recording this live. We'll jump into matchups, archetypes, that sort of thing. The only downside is it means I can't make a full highlight on Twitch because I'm, like, dividing it into different sections, right? I don't want to, like, over-scrutinize my lists before they come. Oh, this needs to be on bot lane. This needs to be, like, prepped for that one. Okay. You guys ready? So, matchups in Platinum start to matter for sure. It's not like IBS where you just pick for synergy. your draft starts to matter, your comp starts to matter, like you actually have to make reasonable decisions in your draft. But not every type of matchup is created equally. So yeah, as I said, matchup dynamics start to matter more. That stems from basic laning and jungling fundamentals being in place. You can more reliably predict what's going to happen. But archetype-based matchups or range-based matchups, those are the ones that matter, right? And by range-based matchups, I mean when one champion just straight outranges the other, like mage versus mage matchups in the mid lane, that is a major factor. It does very regularly contribute to how the matchup plays out. Archetype-based matchups are like, say, bot lane stuff, like wardens will almost always lose to mages. Certain tanks will always lose to certain skirmishers top lane, like stuff like that. Those are archetype-based matchups. But interaction-based matchups, those remain unpredictable in Platinum, right? If players must capitalize on small, temporary moments to win their matchups, that matchup will rarely swing as drastically as it would in theory. Sometimes I get, like, random belches when I'm recording, so we just cut that out, right? If a winning matchup requires literally no conscious thought from the winner, or if there are absolutely no available winning interactions for one player, then yes, the interaction-based matchup will swing as expected. You kind of can't get around that type of thing. But if it's just more subtle than that, as we said, it won't swing. Platinum players are more likely to find themselves in a position where they can't generate their winning interactions, or because specifics can be hard, Platinum players are more likely to not even know what their exact winning interactions are, right? So think about Zyra Thresh, right? Zyra is expected to win that matchup, but it only takes one moment of Thresh having bush control, and all of a sudden the matchup has not swung as expected. Maybe the Zyra player's more likely to cede that bush control, right? So if you would win or lose off specific trading patterns at specific times, that is highly likely not to occur. That's like a Gragas situation top lane, where he just loses to some champions pre-6 before, like that he's incapable of body slamming away while he still has to interact with the wave. Sometimes that just doesn't happen. It's kind of funny. If you can knowledge check players with weaker laners who are waiting for their windows of power, like, great. That's awesome. I actually, in fact, often you can knowledge check is what I wrote, but... So the TLDR of this one is, if it is possible to outplay your opponent without demanding absurd levels of proficiency, that matchup will not always play out as expected, because you will probably be able to find those outplay windows if you're the better player. Players have the basics understood. They're not always optimizing their survivability or threat, though. Their positioning isn't perfect, it's understood. That being said, raw champion power is not the most important thing at this level. We'll see that later, for sure. It was kind of a fun conclusion to draw. But that's especially true if powerful champions have to go through interaction-based matchups to unlock that power. So that's the TLDR of matchups in Platinum. They matter, drafts matter, until this funny little wrinkle starts to factor in, right? Speaking of team compositions, though, archetypes, compositional matchups are shockingly devalued. Like, they are surprisingly not important. And it's usually because Platinum players are a little bit stuck in their ways of, like, how to play the game. They can't really mold to the more complex, weird, like, compositional styles, right? So dive becomes more powerful in Platinum because the natural counter to dive is bait and punish, but bait and punish is a control comp that forces you to play reactively, and if we know Platinum players struggle with that very often, I mean, I've seen it firsthand so many times, the bait and punish just doesn't win where it should. So control archetypes are consistently terrible for that reason, right? Control champions can be strong as long as they don't single-handedly define the archetype that you're playing, and even then, like, they're probably, like, a little bit weaker than they would be in theory. Teamfight and aggro archetypes, like, most of them are fine. Platinum players know how to use their leads, they know how to play aggressively, they know how to play, like, aggro strats, they know how to play teamfight strats, that's what they've been trained on, right? But aggro archetypes tend to have a slight edge in Platinum. Why? Because players have solid laning fundamentals but still make frequent mistakes, and because players have basic macro fundamentals and therefore have an idea of how to actually snowball their lead without seeing the same number of throws as you would observe in, like, IBS Amateur. Right? So that's everything about like the matchups and stuff. Now let's talk about the actual gameplay a little bit more, starting with the most common problem, synchronization and wave management. Synchronization with teammates is not very good. Remember, Platinum players have their basic fundamentals. Specifics are hard. That applies to their teammates as well. So Plat players generally have a hard time understanding in the moment what specifically their teammates might need from them in both micro and macro. It's like genuinely difficult. If you know what your teammates need from you, you actually stand out as a player a lot. Waves don't often get synced very often on mid-game pushes. They're out of sync, it's easier to deal with. Players are almost always out of sync with their atypical duos, so if you're not bot support or not jungle mid, you're probably not working great together yet, which, note that jungle support is one of those atypical duos, which means the vision game can be lacking a little bit. Even if it's more developed, there are holes that you can find and exploit, right? Side lanes can struggle to set up waves properly to accommodate jungle and mid intervention, so champions that require proper wave management to counter or dive are a little bit empowered. It's a little bit harder to dive, and when they do dive, they're going to give up a little more, because you'll find, like, hey, that roam wasn't quite set up properly, that wasn't quite the right time. I can actually, like, the mid lane can now take a plate that ordinarily they shouldn't be allowed to take, right? Like, that's, where's that point? Like, right here, it's actually just the exact next point. Perfect. Another important thing is that Platinum players will very frequently send too many players to make a play because they don't always know exactly which champions are necessary for their play. The macro basics are there, the specifics are not. Noticing a trend, that's kind of how this works. So if you notice that happen, be prepared to punish on macro. I can't tell you how many times my teams have sent like 4 people bot to lose Baron. I can't tell you how many times my teams have taken the Baron off the enemy sending 4 people bot inappropriately. Like, this happens all the time. Way too many people involved in a play when it should be just be like 2 or 3 people, and you should trust that they know how to execute that play. So always be ready to sacrifice something in order to get greater value on the map, and note that junglers will almost never show in a lane solely for a tempo push. Right? You're not going to have that kind of synchronous pressure. And speaking of the jungle took like very specific understanding because it's a little bit different. What we figured out by watching junglers in particular, junglers do understand the fundamentals of tracking and responding to plays. It's obvious that they do. The laners are clueless. The laners have no idea what's actually going on in jungle dynamics. But the junglers have the basics, but not the specifics. And so what you end up seeing is a lot of handshaking, a lot of like cross maps, a lot of like missed opportunities to take like very aggressive leads. Like the X factor that makes for really truly great junglers is almost never there. They're just good junglers. So the only common jungle versus jungle interaction you will see is on late invades, actual skirmish, and on the most obvious counter ganks. Like, they know how to identify counter ganks. They'll go for that unless it's like shocking and weird, you know, like. So if it's not a lane-based event, junglers probably won't push their leads as well as they can. So what does that mean? That means that if you're in a jungle v jungle matchup where you have like low health and they have an excellent invade and could feasibly find an invade without prio and make it before a lane collapse, that's probably not happening. I've seen it literally once in a platinum game, and that player probably was ready to move on to Diamond Amateur. So the only invades you see are the obvious ones. Like a team invades off very obvious prio with an obviously stronger jungler, or a jungler takes a cross-map resource invade. Like the ones that you can just be reasonably expected to see because they're very standard, and the ones that you can reasonably path around and predict, those are the ones that are coming. Remember that the ability to take invades hinges on the ability to generate information, but jungle support synergy is lacking, right? So this is the point that I mentioned about like junglers never taking their like very momentary 1v1s, like that sort of thing. The conclusions we draw from this are that clear speed doesn't really matter in Platinum. Junglers do not consistently enough create advantages off being slightly faster than their opponent because we're expecting a lot of small inaccuracies and mistakes. Clear health can matter, but only if it would expose laners to unanswered plays, because remember, you're not being surprise invaded off the knowledge that your champion has an unhealthy clear. It's only if, like, if you could do nothing in response to an enemy play solely because your HP is low, That's bad because aggro wins in Platinum. And champion-specific vulnerabilities are rarely capitalized on. Like, if your champion is just known to be mandatorily locked to a full clear, just off some weird property of them, you're not seeing more 3-camp into ganks than you ordinarily would, if that makes sense. And, of course, now that we've talked about the jungle, we have to talk about the big thing, the warp factor. We touched on this very briefly at the beginning. If a champion fundamentally changes how the game is played for their enemies, they have a high warp factor, and they are significantly more effective in Platinum play. Like, by a wide margin, these champions are so much more powerful. If a champion fundamentally changes how the game is played for their allies, that warp factor can be a detriment, though, because your allies are also plat players. Your allies are not going to be able to mold their game plan very comfortably. That said, you can allocate specific practice time to this, and you can get the hang of it, provided that the warp factor lends itself to proactive play and doesn't, like, fundamentally change the entire game. It's just harder and requires more, like, dedicated training. So when we start talking about the actual champions, you'll see champions with ally warp factors being slightly devalued, right? If a champion fundamentally changes how the game is played for only their player, there is no real difference in power. You should know how to play your champion. Like, plat players do struggle to change the way they play, but at the same time, they may be simply comfortable on a weird champion, right? Like, the champion can be weird, but you just learned the champ and you're good. That happens. That's okay. So now we're going to move more specifically into how champion power levels change in Platinum, and so I just want to introduce some of the gates and boons that are specific to Platinum. Now, I want to mention, before we go deep into this, I'm not convinced that this gates list is complete. I think it is very possible that we've missed one or two things, and we'll see the consequences of that later. But for now, what limits you in Platinum? Well, being a fundamentally reactive, control-oriented champion, that limits your power. Unless the team around you is all very proactive, right? But as we mentioned, if you default to control archetypes as a champion, you are a weaker champion. You don't like being in a control comp in Platinum. It's always bad. Being an aggro champ that relies on specific synchronous macro movements is also very damning. Remember, the synchronization issue is, like, the biggest problem that we can encounter here. So champions who rely on taking over the game via, like, time-specific, like, tempo plays, turret plates, stuff like that, that type of aggro strategy is weakened. You like simple aggro that just kills things. Complex macro aggro isn't quite there yet, right? If you must plan for your power like 2 to 3 minutes in the future, you do encounter a problem with your mental stack. It's just hard to keep track of all that information. And demanding specific micro or macro attention from your allies complicates the game. Remember, we're not great at identifying what specifically our teammates need from us yet. This one, I also think can probably be compensated for by practice, but, like, it takes a lot of time. Now, the boons, on the other hand, there's a lot more of these. We mentioned warp factors above all, big. Being fundamentally proactive and aggressive augments power. Offensive utility is really, really good down here. Like, you don't want to just be purely defensive utility most of the time, with exceptions, asterisk. Big utility spells that help you to fight and win and aggress tend to dominate down here. If all of your matchups are interaction-based, as we said, you are generally easier to pick, and that unlocks power in the draft. Big skill shot. I just wrote big skill shots, and I said big skill shots like probably 15, 20 times while making these lists that you're about to see, 'cause it's just fun to say. Combat stacking mechanics like Syndra Shards, Victor Augments, Vagar stacks, things like that, like things that you can stack by fighting champions. These increase power levels. Why? Because they prey on the greater aggression of Platinum that is executed with lower precision. I've called some champions one bad day champions, where, like, just one thing has to go wrong and they take over the game. Platinum is, like, the peak for these champions, like, where they just really, really and truly dominate. Like, if you need to only commit one mistake to lose to them, watch out. In the top lane, because we have these mental stack issues and these, like, frequent resource allocation issues where we're sending too many people to asides, hard split push after the enemy solo laner can no longer match you does get responded to improperly, and so it actually augments your value as a champion. You just have to make sure, you have to spend specific time making sure you are stronger than your laner, or split push is not inherently a boon. It's not like IBS where you just split push and win. You have to split push a little more, like with a little more of an advantage than that, but it's still a boon. And in bot lane, the poor wave clear from the AD carry is not going to be punished as severely off some like wave management errors. And we'll see champs like Vayne who profit from that a little bit, who like realistically should not be allowed to be picked, but it ends up working out sometimes. I'm going to cut there so I can take a sip of water. Feels good to have built all of this up with you guys, you know? Like, we developed so much knowledge, and now I just get to, like, go through my spiel, like, do a lecture like this, and it just feels good. Okay, so those are the fundamentals of Platinum play. Now we're going to start talking about, like, specific champion power in the context of a tier list. But it's not exactly a tier list this time, right? If you remember in the IBS video, I talked about how we're not quite sure if those tier lists actually matter right now, because, like, you should only see, like, you should only play the champions you're actually really good at, and so does an arbitrary list matter to you? I kind of got weirded out by it, so this time what I've done is I've created, not a tier list, but like a lens list. We have started sorting champions by how improved or devalued they are in the elo. So you're going to see noticeably weaker champions placed higher than obviously stronger champions. Let me explain, right? This is our bot lane list, and I'll explain the tiers in a moment. Yeah, not all of these champions that are higher on the list are in theory stronger than the champions who are lower. So what this is a lens through which you look at a champion, you take their theoretical power, you filter it through these tiers, and you can kind of get a rough idea of like how much better or worse they are than theory, right? So the ideal platinum champions would hit like all of these necessary boons, like big warp factors, like all the properties that we just explained that we like to see. Unlocked champions like they're noticeably stronger and they generate more pick conditions. Empowered champions are noticeably stronger. Enhanced champions just get a little bit of extra power through these properties. The no change champions are like probably exactly as strong as they are in theory in practical platinum. Slightly devalued champions will hit like a gate or like a control thing. Impaired champions, like now we're starting to talk about like some negative warp factors or like some weird ways that you have to like play with your teammates that they might not be comfortable with, or just like some miscellaneous other gate. Gated champions are the ones, like, it's the counterpart to unlocked. These champions lose pick conditions. If they would be strong in theory, you probably can't actually pick them in platinum through various reasons. And then doomed champions are champions who, like, regardless of power, just, like, don't really function in platinum. Now, these lists are going to be noticeably top-heavy, right? There's going to be a lot more champions in the upper tiers that say these are better champions in platinum than they are in theory, than there are in the lower tiers. And that's not an accident. So the conclusion that we eventually drew, even if I'm missing a couple of gates, which we'll be exploring as time goes on, and hopefully, like, you know, we'll just make a decision now, build knowledge later, iterate on it, that sort of thing, right? The conclusion that we drew was that, yeah, most champions are actually just, like, a little bit improved. There just are more viable champions in practical platinum. So, like, that's kind of the feeling that we're rolling with right now. So let's talk about bot lane, right? I mean, Twitch, Giga Warp Factor, the stealth, like, completely changes games. Draven is just, like, this ticking time bomb, like, mental stack check that, like, pressures you constantly. Like, these champions are just most likely to take over platinum in their dynamics. Seraphine is unlocked. She gets more pick conditions, right? She hits offensive utility. She hits big skill shots. You're going to see a lot of, like, kind of vaguely controlled champions still in the list, solely because they are dominant utility that empowers people offensively. Like, I do not see Seraphine lose in platinum very often. She's just not going to be punished as hard. Then you go through these champions, like anything that is like vaguely aggressive is probably going to be a little bit better, right? There's a lot of bad day champions here in the empowered tier where it's like you give 1 kill to Samira, you give 1 kill to Kaisa, the game gets out of control. Generally, the champions that are better are the ones that are just going to be more capable of fighting, right? And so then we get down to slightly devalued, right? Caitlyn's a bit of a weird one because at the time of recording, she's so dominant, but like at the end of the day, the way she snowballs is through synchronous map movements, and that doesn't work as well. You're going to see a lot of anchors, which are champions who like being engaged on and like to play reactively, like Xayah and Aphelios, who get a little bit devalued here. Senna is all the way down here because from the AD carries perspective, like it's very... Like, if the AD carry player is locking in fasting Senna, it becomes uncomfortable for the Platinum support very quickly to have to change their responsibilities, change the way they approach lane. And so that does actually, on a lot of Platinum teams, start to impose some gates. You would have to practice that very specifically. Kalista was here just because of some, like, team synergy things, because, like, you need to capitalize on her very specific timings, her windows of power to, like, really get value out of her. But I also want to just add a disclaimer before we move on to the other ones that this is a first draft. We did just make a decision and commit to it, and we'll learn more later. So if you actually disagree with any of these tiers or something, like, feel free to leave a comment. I'm totally happy with that. I'm totally happy to discuss, because everything here is ultimately a work in progress. Right? Again, the last thing I want to say, the real last thing I want to say before we move on to is, like, you will see a couple things where it's like, oh, some scaling utility champions are better, some, like, scaling champions are worse. Like, there are definitely a couple of, like, gut instinct, like, vibes-based placements on here. And you'll see a little bit of what I mean as we go on, right? So do not treat this list as gospel. This is a guideline. Please do not, like, just take this and run away and, like, live by it. So that would be bad. This is what we've kind of described for the jungle. Again, what is dominating up here is, like, warp factors. What do these champions contribute? Oh, big global, like, surprise, we're fighting moments from a lack of vision. Complete invisibility, which now you have to change. Like, Platinum players hate stealth. They hate stealth so much. It is deeply uncomfortable to have to forfeit a mid-wave because of, like, a lack of information that you usually don't have to think about. We're seeing a lot of aggro champs that get improved. Like, Fiddlesticks is only not in ideal because he actually has a warp factor that slightly negatively impacts his teammates, unless you just, like, cover him and engage champions, and then you can kind of get away with it, but yeah. And then as we're going into the empowered champions here, like, you're just seeing a lot of, like, big, like, some of them are very aggro champs, some of them are just champs who, like, get away with their clears not being punished through the jungle 1v1 dynamics that we described earlier. Ivern in particular is here because he has a champion-specific vulnerability in the very early game that doesn't get capitalized on, and because, like, he does have a warp factor of his own by just disrupting timings, like, when is he going to gank, when is he finishing his clear. It's different, it changes throughout the game, it's not the orthodox timers, and so he does very often surprise laners because the junglers aren't warning the laners of, like, those weird distorted times, right? Everything in Enhanced is just, like, a vaguely aggressive champion that gains slightly more value. You'll notice champions like Talon who have very unhealthy clears, who gain power here because those unhealthy clears aren't always being punished. We have Kindred here rather than up here because their warp factor isn't as dramatic. Like, everyone kind of understands the Mark minigame. That information is given to everybody on the minimap, so it's not occupying too much of your mental stack. That said, Kindred is still improved because they're a champion that stacks through combat and is definitely expected to gain, like, a couple of more marks than they would in theoretical play, right? Of the champions that are slightly devalued, again, we have a lot of, like, very reactive picks that have lesser agency in the moment. We have Olaf, who in Modern League has kind of become a scaling pick, who gains his power through, like, specific enchanter synergies, and you have to play the game around him a little differently, and so, you know, again, a little uncomfortable, a little different. Gwen is way down here because, like, Jungle Gwen is a very specific strategy for, like, hypercarry enchanter archetypes or, like, bait and punish archetypes, and, like, we don't really want to deal with control-leaning stuff like that, especially as extreme as, like, Jungle Gwen, right? Moving on to mid lane, This is where we definitely start to see some of those scaling champions, like, being unusually highly valued for an elo in which we said, like, aggro does win often. The only thing I'm going to say about this is, like, when is the last time you actually saw Zilean lose a platinum amateur game? It just kind of doesn't happen. Twisted Fate was a bit contentious. When his ultimate is strong, like, it just breaks the game, and platinum players cannot deal with that. But at the same time, like, it is, like, a thing that your team has to play around. So, like, you could argue for him moving down to tier 2, like, whatever. Katarina's a one bad day champion, just gains more pick condition. Like, this is the perfect storm in Platinum, where, like, the mechanical proficiency is high enough to play Katarina well, and the general awareness is low enough just for her to, like, get that one moment that she desperately needs. Right? This is critical mass Katarina elo. Empowered, we're seeing a lot of warp factors. Zoe warp factor through walls, how she changes how you have to interact with terrain. Twitch, like, stealth again. Seraphine, who just has the big utility spells and tends to win. We have this collection of champions who have stacking mechanics. We have Cassidon, who doesn't get punished as much and then scales into a champion that can be very proactive. Roamer, warp factor, and one bad day champ, like warp factor. Right? It's pretty clear what's dominating these tiers. Everything in enhanced for mid lane is, again, just like generically slightly aggressive champions, or like they have like one property that's appealing. Like they have a big skill shot like Ornn mid. They have like a slight warp factor like Akshan mid, or like Fizz, who just like is the type of champion who's like ready to capitalize on the mistakes regardless of what that mistake is, right? All these pick champions up here. You're going to see a couple of like control-oriented champions and no change. Mainly because like the flavor of control offered by Malzahar and Anivia doesn't like force you into a control archetype. It's just really, really, really good at punishing mistakes so they don't get devalued. Vhagar actually would have been devalued. Because at the time of recording, his systems don't lend themselves well to aggressive play. He doesn't have a strong Predator. He doesn't have a strong Everfrost. He's very reactive, but he's salvaged a bit by the stacking mechanics through combat, right? And then what's slightly devalued in the mid lane? Azir being here can be controversial, right? The reason I have him here is because if you pick him too early, he does create a tendency to have to draft control. The general artillery champions, same deal. These very reactive champions. Gangplank doesn't have the same level of agency in mid lane as he does in top lane. It's pretty clear why everyone is sort of here. And then we have the like two scaling champions in Impaired. The reasoning that they end up down here and Cassidon is allowed to be up here, even though they're not going to be punished in lane as hard as they would, the payoff for these champions is, again, like very pure artillery and like very defensive output. So that's why they don't thrive as much in the context of Platinum. Going to support, we have a funny little graphic because I got lazy and didn't want to remake the graphic. I do want to point out Doomed. This tier is not very accurate. I put this here as a joke for one of my viewers who likes Misfortune support, and Misfortune support is not strong, but it's not inherently worse for being in Platinum, right? And that should be the point of the tier list. Right? So what dominates here? Oh look, some disgusting roamers. Oh look, Zilean, who just wins. Platinum players know how to generate kills. Zilean stops them from generating kills, right? Obviously, Pyke is like the dominant aggro in Platinum. He dumpsters his lane, he terrorizes the map, he completely changes how the game is played. Similar to Bard, the only reason Bard doesn't make the tier above is because he's not quite as strong in lane as well, right? Again, warp factors. What makes a noticeably stronger champion? Oh, Hybridinger. You can't play into him unless you're playing very specific types of champions, right? Twitch support. Stealth. Oh god, we hate that. Blitzcrank. Oh, he's just terrorizing the river, right? Rill actually gains a lot of value in Platinum because, like, the thing that causes her to lose is an interaction-based matchup. And you're not always getting, like, you're losing interactions if you're playing Rill in Platinum, right? Nami is empowered because, like, it's another critical mass thing where she's actually more likely to be able to step up and aggress on her opponents directly and actually profit from her lane bully nature. Honestly, Seraphine should probably be even a bit higher just because I think this champion inherently wins Platinum as well, much like Zilean, and I didn't really account for that in my notes. And yeah, every champion here has like some factor, like Galio support is enhanced because the things that make him suck in lane are a little less pronounced when people are playing just a little sloppier, right? What is devalued? Defensive champions. Sejuani support is a pick that very much relies on specific windows of power, like that window between like 15 to 25 minutes, or like more specifically 10 to 20 when she hits 6. Like the strengths that she offers are very macro based, and they are inherently aggressive, but they're like just weird. They're weirder to play around than something like Leona, even though I think she's a strong champion. Gragas very defensive, Nasus very defensive, Janna very defensive. Truthfully, I can't remember why I put Zoe here. So we'll move on. The champions that are gated are like these very synergy-reliant picks that like force your AD carry to play something specific to make them functional. But those specific picks aren't very common. Like Ivern Rengar, you're not expecting that of your players in Platinum, right? Yeah, and so we'll just kind of speed on to top lane. Yes, we put Rengar up here. So there was a bit of a conversation in my Twitch chat while we were working on this, like, why does Rengar get to go up here, but Heimerdinger doesn't? The ultimate answer was, like, both of these champions are very differently oppressive in the lane phase. Like, Rengar is 100% knowledge checking you. He has very specific counterplay to what he does. If you're not used to laning against that, you will struggle a lot. The difference is Rengar snowballs into a menace aggressively around the map, whereas Heimerdinger snowballs into a lot more of a control thing, which we don't value in Platinum, especially since if he is the top laner, he's gaining less proactive access to his grenade, the kind of proactive access that he would gain from grouping with his team as a bot laner or a support, right? I think Shen is just the dominant top lane champion in Platinum play, again, for similar reasons as Zilean, where just it's a humongous warp factor, fundamentally changes the game. You go for a kill, you can't get it. It would work in non-Shen circumstances, but it's very, very difficult to factor in Shen with limited mental stacks, right? Gragas is here because a lot of his matchups are interaction-based, and so even in his bad matchups, it just creates more pick conditions for him. Again, that's what the unlocked here means. Empowered champions are like big skill shots, or like some of the champions who just become split push menaces and get those reactions of too many champions. Or they have like global threats like Pantheon. Like we do always value global threats. Or like, you know, Karma warps the game through very different trade dynamics where like the average top laner would expect she looks dead and then she isn't, and it's just annoying, you know? And I think that is all we really need to talk about with this list without getting very redundant. We can talk about Alawi for a little bit. This, I think, Platinum Elo is Alawi's worst trough. I think she is at her best in IBS level play where people just run into her, and then she troughs out as control comps get much worse, and then as you get closer, like Masters, Grandmasters, that sort of thing, Alawi gets better again, because those players should be reasonably expected to know how to play control, and Alawi drafted correctly is oppressive. They won't draft her incorrectly, so she, like, peaks again, right? That's probably, like, the only thing we really need to talk about impaired, devalued. I mean, I guess we can talk about, like, Jace, right, who becomes slightly devalued from, like, specific requirements of his jungler, Urgot, who becomes slightly devalued despite having like a lane phase that Urgot mains can make work aggressively. He then scales into something that his team has to play around differently. He does favor control comps like bait and punish. He likes pick. He kind of looks like he's going to team fight around you and then kind of doesn't most of the time. It's just a little awkward to play into. And then in the Doomed tier, we have these, like, Giga-specific, like I like Zilean top into Darius, like that sort of matchup, but that's realistically not the type of strategy you're going for to win Platinum games. So I've placed them in Doomed tier. And again, to reiterate, this is not a tier list. This is a list of how champions are improved or devalued by being in Platinum Elo. That's the gist of it. I don't think I have anything else that is, like, major to say. I guess I can share, like, a little bit of an anecdote. Throughout a lot of Season 12, I definitely tried to be the guy who runs control comps because that's my default style. That's what I prefer to play. And just time and time again, it was proven wrong. It was just proven to be the wrong way to play the game in Platinum. Like, I really cannot stress enough how common autopilot is, how hard it is to predict players when you don't have a completely fundamental understanding of, like, what exactly their game plan is, and when they may make inaccuracies as well, right? It's just reactive play, scaling play is not the play. Even if you do everything right, you're also trusting your teammates to do everything right, and you just can't expect that of each other in Platinum. You can only expect everyone to do good enough. And sometimes good enough is not good enough when you're playing Giga Control bot lanes, seeding full pressure to a Blitzcrank with a Warp Factor who changes how the game is played, and, you know, we're not synchronizing our waves to, like, we're not setting up our waves properly in solo lanes to receive Blitzcrank ganks, or to receive enemy jungle intervention, or allied jungle intervention. That's it. So, Platinum play, pick Warp Factors, pick aggression, try to kill people. You don't know what mistakes are coming, but the mistakes are coming. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be funny. That's generally the types of lines we're going to be following. Okay. There we go. We made a video. I love this type of it. It's like, it was high effort on stream to research and stuff, but it's so low effort in the moment to produce, and it's just good to, like, be able to get more stuff out there, you know? Another reason that I've been enjoying TikTok lately is because, like, I can make a video and it doesn't feel like I'm sitting down to make content. It feels like I'm literally just sharing my thoughts. Thank you. That video should bang. I'm really excited for it. Because the IBS one was definitely the most popular one I released since, like, day one Cassante. Yeah. Okay. So that's the study done. Guys, I'm really thankful for you, helping me with this project over the last while. It took 4 streams to get all this information compiled. I'm very confident in it. We're going to have to do gold at some point and figure that one out, but the amateur scene is starting back up soon, so it should be really, really, really easy to get gold knowledge. I should be able to just watch, right? I should be able to watch, learn, like, just have some fun. VAD, VRD maybe for Platinum stuff again. I'm definitely going to find a way to make amateur content because, like, again, that's the niche I'm trying to fill, right? I'm trying to establish myself in the amateur space. I want people to say, like, oh, I want, like, who the hell else is making content for IBS, Gold, Platinum, Diamond, Amateur Play? Like, some people don't even know these scenes exist. And so, and I want to help them flourish. I think League esports is just the most fun way to play the game. And I want to, like, help them to build more positive communities of people, like, interested in the strategy rather than just, like, trying to stomp each other and banter, right? Okay, so what is the plan? What is coming in the next few weeks, guys? We are continuing the lore climb. I'm going to try to hit Diamond before the season rolls over. Once I've hit Diamond, I will then play the season reset and try to climb to Masters. I'm actually going to go for it. Once I do hit Masters, we're going to have another playthrough vote. That's going to take a while. It's going to be a casual playthrough. It's not going to be a competitive game. But that's, again, a long ways away. For the immediate future, Day 1 Aurelian Soul research is going to start momentarily. We're doing our first in-house on Wednesday, as long as PvE deploys correctly. We're doing our second in-house on Sunday. That's going to dominate probably most of my week. It's going to be the core focus. If the patch notes come out on Wednesday, I will not be able to do a rundown on Wednesday. I will have to do a rundown on Thursday. In the meantime, I'm still working on some specific itemization videos for TikTok. I have a channel trailer coming out shortly. After Day 1 Aurelian Soul and this Platinum video releases, I will probably, I'm either going to be doing a video about Hades and its relation to League of Legends, and what you can actually learn from playing roguelikes like that, or I'm going to be doing, like, I don't know, I guess, like, Same Difference Neela Samira could come up there, or I guess, like, we could do a full, I don't really want to do a full standard mage itemization video now that my TikToks are, like, itemization focused. And I can make a series out of them. But it could also be, like I've got a concept to talk about from my lore climb and relating that back to League. that's kind of the ongoing content pipeline right now. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of it. Oh, it is so late. I need to get to bed immediately. I'm actually going to bed at appropriate times these days, and I don't want to break that. So, expect Aurelian Soul content. Expect some amateur content starting up soon as my league begins, like, next month. Thank you for your help. I appreciate it a lot. Don't forget to love yourselves, respect each other, take care. I'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.